That was Hard Talk. I'm Saroja Coelho. You're listening to CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Tuesday and your morning show on CBC. I'm Marcy Marcusa, and this is Information Radio on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube this morning. Thanks so much for joining our team. Our high today is minus 19, and man, it is frigid out there and really icy if you're driving around town as well. We do have an extreme cold warning that's issued for parts of western Manitoba and all the way up to Dauphin. This is going to be Dauphin, Russell, Roblin, Winnipegosis, Verdun, Souris, Brandon, Neepawa, Melita, Pilot Mound, and right through Riding Mountain National Park. So it's going to be very, very icy and cold to the west today. We will, though, in Winnipeg see some sunshine. So we'll have a clear, cold day ahead, and that's same for Brandon. Lots of sunshine as well with that cold. Up north, a little different. Thompson expecting some periods of light snow, though you're going to be cold as well today in Thompson. So more details, of course, on the weather coming throughout the program. Let's get all settled in, though. May McKillop is back directing the program. Good morning, May. And May will be covering the commute on the air as well. Abby Adeyemi is here behind the controls. Hey, Abby. Abby is our technical producer and will be covering weather. And good morning to Kevin Nipatebo, who is our YouTube producer. Waving hello if you're watching the show this morning. All right, Heather Wells is here also. She is here to update the news at 2 minutes to 6. Hi, Heather.
Hi, good morning. Well, the federal Conservatives have nominated a familiar face to run this year in Winnipeg South. Janice Morley-Lecomte was a progressive Conservative MLA from Seine River during the years of 2016 to 2023. She will now seek federal office in Winnipeg South. That riding has been represented by Liberal MP Terry Duguid since 2015. We're going to hear more about that. And we're about to get on a winter roller coaster from frigid this morning to close to melting tomorrow and then diving right back into the minus 20s by the weekend. We're going to hear from an assistant professor at the University of Manitoba about what's causing this, coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
Yeah, what is going on, right?
I know.
All right, Heather, thank you.
You're welcome.
We have this in December as well, right? The frigid, and then we have the snap into the warmth. So we'll have a full interview about that as well, by the way, on the program. In the first hour of the show, next after World Report, we're going to be talking about puppy yoga. Yep, that'll keep you warm. And also, we're going to talk about the road to zero emissions and making sure that no communities left behind. What does that look like in Canada? Stay tuned.
Today on Q with Tom Power. Sindhu V has become one of the most in-demand comics and actors in the UK, but her path to comedy wasn't exactly straightforward. Sindhu talks about why she traded in a life as an investment banker for the life of a stand-up and the strange similarities between the two.
In banking, I was paid properly, while in motherhood, not so much.
That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. A new report says Donald Trump would have been convicted for election interference.
Now moot, since Trump would have fired Smith anyway.
One of Donald Trump's nominees will be in the hot seat today. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, this is a busy week on Capitol Hill where a dozen of Trump's cabinet picks will face confirmation hearings. And today, his controversial Secretary of Defense, former Fox News host and combat veteran Pete Hegseth, will face a grilling for his past accusations of sexual assault, alcohol abuse, financial mismanagement, and his views about women in combat. Here's Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer.
If there's any cabinet position that ought to have a steady and drama-free individual, it is certainly Secretary of Defense. Unfortunately, Mr. Hegseth's background is deeply troubling.
Now, later this week, some other controversial nominees will face hearings. Vaccine skeptic Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to lead health, and Tulsi Gabbard, who's accused of cozying up with America's adversaries. But Republicans are feeling confident they have the votes to confirm them.
All right. Thank you, Richard.
Thanks.
The CBC's Richard Madden in Washington. Qatar's foreign ministry says a ceasefire deal for Gaza is close. Negotiations are expected to resume today to secure an agreement between Israel and Hamas. It would include a swap of Israeli hostages for Palestinian prisoners. Majid Al-Ansari is a ministry spokesperson.
The talks that are ongoing now are on the final details of reaching an agreement. However, it's very important not to over or raise the expectations to a level that doesn't link to what's happening on the ground right now. We do believe that we are at a developed stage. We do believe that we are at the final stages, but obviously until there is an announcement, there will be no announcement.
If the deal goes ahead, it would roll out in 3 phases. The first would include a 6-week ceasefire and the release of more than 30 Israeli hostages. Gusty winds in Los Angeles are threatening the progress made by wildfire fighters. The Santa Ana winds are forecast to peak by mid-morning. They could blow sparks and fan the flames of the 2 biggest fires. They're only just partially contained. Steve Futterman is in Los Angeles with the latest. And Steve, how are the winds right now?
Well, the winds are, in my area in Pacific Palisades, they are decent, mild right now, but they're expected to pick up throughout the day. And in other areas, they will be stronger or less, depending on where you are. Now, the PDS, the particularly dangerous situation red flag alert, is now in effect. It will continue for the next 36 hours or so. And this is the time that the National Weather Service says really the conditions are ripe to have either new fires or reignite these other fires. Now, it's up to Mother Nature. If the winds are stronger than anticipated, they could have problems. They're pretty confident that if they get a bit of luck, they'll be able to be okay.
Steve, thousands of buildings have been burned. Tens of thousands of people are out of their homes. What kind of aid are people getting?
Well, they're getting aid from various charities. They're getting aid from the government. They're getting aid from local jurisdictions and also FEMA. Obviously, right now, if you've been locked out and forced out of your home, there are many things you have to face. The most important is housing. They do have, obviously, shelters set up. They have also, in many cases, people are staying with relatives and friends, but there are so many people displaced that it has become a bit of a problem. We've heard of people who have to stay in their cars, their vehicles become their home as well. It's a very troubling situation for just about everyone who's been forced to leave.
All right. Thank you, Steve.
My pleasure, Marcia.
Freelance reporter Steve Futterman in Los Angeles. The world's largest religious festival in northern India is bringing millions of people together. Today is one of the most sacred days of the weeks-long Hindu gathering. 20 million people are expected to take a dip in the country's holy rivers. The CBC South Asia correspondent Salima Shivji has more from Mumbai.
A huge throng of people make their way to the sacred banks of the Ganges, the Yamuna, and the mythical Sarasvati River. Tens of thousands of Hindu devotees are led by Naga sadhus, ash-smeared holy men, naked and plunging into the water. This is one of the ultimate goals for many Hindus, bathing in the river to purify their souls and wash away their sins. If there is heaven on earth, it's here today, Sayoni Rawat says after her dip. More than 20 million people are expected at the confluence of the 3 rivers just today. It's the largest religious gathering in the world, so big it can be seen from space. And this year is considered especially significant, a Maha or Grand Kumbh Mela, but with the planets, sun and moon perfectly aligned to make this celebration more spiritual. The festival runs for 45 days and organizers expect more than 400 million people to converge on the area. It's a staggering organizational feat, with tens of thousands of portable toilets and tents set up, stretching over land the size of 7,500 football fields. We're prepared for anything, this police superintendent.
Change energy policy. He will be taking questions from reporters, and after a week of saying he's thinking about it, we'll see if he's prepared to call it. Karina Gould is announcing some government funding in her riding in the morning and is also expected to face questions about her ambitions at that event too. Then both of them are slated to appear together at another fireside chat event at the Chamber of Commerce in Gould's riding later in the afternoon. So that might be interesting. Meanwhile, Natural Resources Minister Jonathan Wilkinson is in Washington for the next couple of days, speaking to Republican legislators and other influencers about the value of Canadian exports. If he is still pondering a leadership run, it doesn't seem like he's focusing on that this week.
Then there's former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney. Janice, did he do a soft launch of his leadership bid on a U.S. comedy show?
Mark Carney hasn't done any interviews with Canadian reporters for weeks. But yes, he did find time in his schedule to talk to Jon Stewart.
It's really difficult for a candidate to come in who is saddled with the policies that are on.
But let's say,
oh boy,
the candidate wasn't part of the government. Let's say the candidate did have a lot of economic experience. Let's say the candidate did deal with crises. Let's say the candidate had a plan to deal with the challenges in the here and now.
Sneaky. You're running as an outsider.
I am an outsider.
It's a bit of a trend now in Canadian politics to go on American shows with large Canadian audiences to reach people in this country who don't watch the news. Carney will have to face Canadian reporters at the expected official launch of his leadership bid later this week.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
That is the CBC's Janice McGregor from our Parliamentary Bureau. And the Canadian government's IT service says it has blocked streaming sites on its networks. That means no more Netflix, Disney Plus, or Amazon Prime. Shared Services Canada says those sites were not using a significant amount of bandwidth, and they're simply not necessary for federal bureaucrats to do their jobs. But YouTube, Facebook, and other social media sites can still be accessed by government workers. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
It is frigid out there. Once again, even colder than yesterday. We've got an extreme cold warning issued for most of western Manitoba. It's clear in Winnipeg and minus 24. Welcome to Tuesday morning. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg, and this hour on the show, we're going to be talking about something that could warm you up. It's furry and small, or I should say they're furry and small. Yoga with puppies. The Winnipeg Humane Society is running their popular program again. We're going to hear all about it. In addition, this hour on the program, we have Ryan Tumulty, who will join us, political reporter with the Toronto Star. He often joins us on Tuesdays for Ottawa Report. Today, we will elaborate on who's running in the Liberal leadership race. We just heard some analysis on World Report. We also will hear how well all levels of government are working together to try and prevent Trump's tariffs. So stay tuned for those conversations straight ahead. Headlines in a moment. Heather Wells is in to update us on other news. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, the province is going to release some more details today on its plan to address the growing issue of homeless encampments. The NDP government plans to gradually relocate people, one encampment at a time, into more permanent housing. A Winnipegger is fighting hate by becoming a one-man graffiti removal crew. Avram Sharak has taken it upon himself to wipe out graffiti he and other community members find offensive, and he does this work on his own time. He believes he's removed hundreds of anti-Semitic tags in the past year. We're going to hear from him in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells. And now let's go to Abby Adeyemi, who's got our forecast.
It's a cold one across western and central Manitoba today. We do have that extreme cold one in effect from Brandon and regions around that area. Very cold wind chills expected this morning. Actual temperatures we're tracking in that region is already around minus 30. Now, combined with the winds, the wind chill is going to be feeling like minus 40 this morning, so you need to take care out there. Looking at conditions in Winnipeg and surrounding areas, minus 24 already. We're looking out for a sunny day and a high of minus 19. However, the wind chill this morning feels like minus 36, people, so you need to take care if you're heading out.
Layers under the big parka. Yep, it's the day. May is here just to remind us of the traffic line, should anything be developing. Good morning.
No calls so far, but I'm just looking at highways outside of Winnipeg here. We're seeing some partly covered conditions if you're heading east outside of Winnipeg, particularly through the Whitemouth and Poplar Bay area as well, Riding Mountain National Park area as well, along Highway number 10. Anything you see throughout the program, give me a call and I'll let your fellow listeners know. 204-788-3093.
6:13 the time right now, and up first this half hour, efforts are underway to reduce greenhouse gases, not just in Canada, but all around the world. This impacts communities, of course, in very different ways. So some are more vulnerable than others to negative effects like job losses. And the Institute for Research on Public Policy has now created the Community Transformations Project. The goal is to support workers and communities through this transition. And so to talk about it this morning, Vice President of Research is Rachel Sampson, and Rachel's on the line. Good morning.
Good morning.
So tell us a little bit about the communities, first of all, that you chose to focus on in this report.
So we did a comprehensive analysis across the country, and what we're looking for was community susceptibility to workforce disruption. And workforce disruption is not just job loss. It could be job change. It could be new skills requirements. changes in wages, major inflows or outflows of workers to a community, even worker shortages. But of course, there could also be job loss. But the good news is that we find that 90% of Canadians live in communities that are not particularly susceptible to workforce disruption. But there are 10% of Canadians that live in susceptible communities, and those tend to have smaller populations, they're more rural or remote, and they have less economic diversity. And that's where we think we should focus.
And I just want to interject here for a moment. Those communities, the 10% that could face impacts, are you finding, you said rural areas, but are you finding that in provinces across Canada?
Yes, in provinces across Canada and in the territories. And so in Manitoba, we're using census divisions as communities. And in northern parts of Manitoba, those are quite large. But we do find 3 census divisions in Manitoba that are susceptible.
And mostly in the north, you said?
So in northern Manitoba, there's one, but also around Nipawa. And the oil and gas region in the southwestern part of the province.
Obviously makes sense. Yeah, we were doing our live show in Verdun just last year. What are some of the actual impacts that the transition could have on communities? You've been talking about them, but one of the things that you explore is specifically cultural loss to communities where they have to transition. What does that mean?
So what we see in smaller communities when there's a major transformation that happens is that really the whole community could be affected. It's not just the workers at facilities. It could affect suppliers, local restaurants, the revenue for local governments, community organizations that depend on donations. Home prices could be affected, mental health. So really what we're thinking of is the need for sort of having a full plan for every aspect of the community to support them through a transformation.
What are some of the things that the communities themselves are asking for?
So the communities that we've spoken to are really asking for more agency and control over the transformation strategies. They would like to be supported in sort of developing community-led plans rather than having top-down plans imposed on them.
Flexibility with the EI system is something I understand that the communities are asking for. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
So that's something that we heard about, and particularly we released a profile today of Ingersoll, Ontario, which is one of the first communities to start making electric vehicles. And one of the things that they found is the employment insurance system really wasn't suited to their transformation, which involved a retooling of their plant, which workers were laid off during the time that the plant was being modernized. And then as it started up, there were rolling layoffs as they built up towards full capacity. And the EI system isn't really set up to support those kind of changes.
I'm just thinking as we're talking here this morning, Rachel, about all the communities that have lost industry in the past, like in Manitoba, right? I'm thinking about Pinawan, I'm thinking about Leaf Rapids, when mills closed, when mines shut down, all of those kinds of things. It sounds like we have similar threads, which is natural when we're talking about these transitions. What are the actual recommendations that are coming out of your research?
So today our recommendations are focused on the economic development side, and in the future we're going to be looking at employment insurance skills and some of the social side of things. But so today what we're saying is that a lot of these communities, one of their challenges is a lack of economic diversity. So we think governments could provide an added incentive for private investment in those communities, such as top up to existing tax credits or considering location more in some of the programs that are around. The second thing we suggest is leveraging federally funded community futures organizations, which are one of the few federal organizations located in and around communities. And we think with additional capacity, these organizations could really help support those community-led strategies. And the last thing we suggest is better community data to allow communities on one side of the country to learn from the experiences of the other side of the country.
Speaking of data, where can people go online to find your research, the study we're talking about?
So they can go to irpp.org, and it should be available right on that site.
Thank you very much for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
That's Rachel Sampson, bye-bye, Vice President of the Research of the Institute at the Institute for Research on Public Policy. We reached her this morning in Ottawa.
Arctic glaciers, the Amazon rainforest, the Great Barrier Reef. Unique tourism destinations because they are vanishing. Last Chance Tourism on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on demand on CBC Listen.
It's appropriate coming out of our conversation, right? Sad, though. It is 6:19 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. I'm RC Marcusa. This is CBC's Information Radio. It's minus 24 in Winnipeg. I hope you plugged the car in last night. If you're up and listening and having your coffee and thinking, oh, I didn't, you might want to sneak out and give it a chance. Plug it in now, even if you don't have to leave till later. Our high today in the city, minus 19. Now, especially if you're in the western part of the province where there's an extreme cold warning that has been issued. But minus 24 is cold enough. Thank you very much. Next on the show, let's talk about something that'll warm your heart because it's, well, fuzzy and warm. I'm talking about puppy yoga. It's a class that is happening at the Winnipeg Humane Society later this month. And it's already sold out, but you can still take part in the fun. And to find out what that means, Carly Peters is with us on Zoom with the Winnipeg Humane Society. Good morning.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being with us. I kind of hoped you would be somewhere where you would be like covered in puppies.
That usually is my 9 to 5. I'm absolutely covered in puppies. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's the best.
How can people still take part? Just before we dive into how cool this is, and you guys have brought this back, of course, because it's popular. How can people still take part given that it's sold out?
Yeah, so one of the key parts of the puppy yoga is to find puppies forever homes coming out of foster so they don't have to enter back into the shelter. So the class itself is great for people to come and have a little exercise and get some cuddles and kisses. For the puppies, they get a little extra socialization and hopefully some more exposure to find forever homes.
How popular is this? This is not the first time you've done the puppy yoga.
No, this is our 4th, and it typically sells out within minutes. This time we didn't even do a teaser. We just kind of launched it and put a post out on social media, and it was gone within minutes.
Does anyone actually do yoga at this thing? Or are they just rolling around on the mats with the dogs?
Great question. There's a few stretches here and there. We do try to achieve about 40 minutes of yoga. The puppies are free roaming while the yoga is happening. But yeah, there's a lot more of playing, cuddling, and kissing, I think.
Oh, no doubt. How many puppies are at the sessions usually?
So for this one, we have 7. We have a sweet mama named Tetra and all of her fish litter. So we have guppy and tuna and goldfish. So there'll be 7 puppies in this litter.
What kind of puppies are they, or what do the dogs look like, just to the radio listeners?
Oh my goodness, they're fuzzy, they're black and brown. We typically don't try to super guess breeds. We kind of call them Manitoba specials. So they're typically a mix of maybe a shepherd and a husky, but they're just, they're squishy and their paws are so big and they, you know what? They smell good. They just even smell good.
So all these guys are up for adoption?
Yes, they will be up for adoption just after the class ends on the 26th. But if anybody sees them on social media while the puppy yoga is happening, you can call our adoptions line at 204-982-2035, and you can be added as an interested party, because ideally we'd love to just bring them back to the shelter for their final spay-neuter surgery and vaccines and just send them into their forever home.
I want to ask you, just beyond the yoga, just to look at adoption for a moment here. One of the things that some people might do is they may watch the stream and think, oh, that puppy looks really social and excited and clearly is good with people. And that may be true by observing some behavior, but it also might not be. How do you judge a dog's behavior? What's best practice if you are going to meet a puppy at the Humane Society or a dog at the Humane Society and you're trying to guess if they're right for your family? I know you guys do assessments that can help as well.
Yeah, our adoption counselors are incredible. They will sit down with potential adopters and sort of ask them what their lifestyle is like, what they are looking for. They will try to best match you with an animal if you haven't already decided. But it's good to ask those questions. And as an entire household, you all need to understand that a puppy is a big responsibility, and it's a very long-term responsibility. So I think we have to have really frank discussions about expectations to ensure it is successful in adoption.
How early can you tell if a dog is going to be a little bit quieter, which might work for some people? But I mean, at puppy yoga, do you have some that just sort of maybe lean out of the social aspects and maybe pick one person, and others that are like, work in the room?
Absolutely. Puppies and dogs are just like people. They're all unique. They all have their own behaviors and their likes and dislikes. Environment plays a huge role in it as well. Like some of us are extroverts, some of us are introverts. So a puppy that might be a little shy in a group might do well in a quieter home. And also, they're still young and they're developing their personalities. And with a lot of love and training, they can turn into kind of the bestest dog you probably ever had.
Is it a myth that the bigger dogs are often calmer than the smaller guys?
Oh, I don't know. My behavior team could probably answer that a little better. I can tell you I've seen both on both ends. Again, it's a lot to do with how you sort of work with your own animal as well. I do believe animals do reflect a little bit of our own personalities. So they kind of adapt to their lifestyle quite a bit.
In terms of how you guys are doing over the Humane Society, beyond these guys that are up for adoption, I love the names, by the way. Super cute. Tuna and Guppy, and can't go wrong with that. But beyond these guys, how are you doing over there? Do you have a lot of animals that are looking for homes right now?
Yeah, we still are at capacity. Around this time of year, we tend to find that we are getting an influx of puppies. We had the Harry Potter litter. We have a few other litters still in foster as well. It's kind of the new normal. We've talked about being at capacity for over a year and a half at least, and that kind of has become the standard. So yeah, we have a lot of dogs, cats, and puppies still looking for their homes in the new year.
And just last, at yoga, I'm just curious how often they ruin the mats. digging and digging and digging, or maybe they're too little.
Yeah, you know what? We give people some toys to help distract. We do have our wonderful behavior team. They start the class off with a little bit of instructions on how to redirect those little sharp puppy teeth and claws. So we try our best so that people don't walk away with holes in their mats or peas on them too.
That's worth it. It's worth it. All right, Carly, thank you very much for being up early and talking to us about the need for people to lean into adoption at the Humane Society. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Thanks.
Can you imagine if that's your day job, being around puppies all day? Hello. Carly Peters, Director of Communications at the Winnipeg Humane Society. They are having their puppy yoga coming up. It is sold out, but the puppy class you can watch, and then you can also get engaged if you are interested in adoption. So you can contact the Winnipeg Humane Society or go online for more information. It is 6:26 a.m., a bit of music before we get to the news this morning with Heather Wells. And this comes from an artist out of Toronto, Andrew Spice, who says his new song comes out of a breakup, but calls it a love letter to Toronto and, appropriately, to his dog. This is called High Park.
I'm just walking my dog here in High Park by Grenadier Pond. This is a little spot where we go when things are painful, even when it gets cold. There is history in this place, memories we're trying to change. Before this, it wasn't the two of us, there were 6 of us every week. Dogs and kid running around, and I thought that this was my family. But sometimes in life you get betrayed, sometimes you have to start again. Gotta sing my own songs, find some new places to be alone, 'cause it's not here anymore. It's no place I've been before. I've gotta sing my own songs, gotta write everything that's wrong, 'cause I can't care about you and the hell you put me through. I'm just walking my dog, speaking with trees, just like Tori. Feel the earth under my feet, not thinking about where our love is buried. Now I won't see your kid grow up, and you won't see me fall in love. I've gotta sing my own songs, find some new places to belong, 'cause it's not here anymore. place I've been before. I've gotta sing my own songs, gotta write everything that's wrong, 'cause I can't care about you and the hell you put me through. And I may be ravaged, but the leaves dance like magic. You tried to take it all from me. I've got news for you. You actually set me free. You set me free from all your cruelty.
Tune is called High Park, and that's a tune from Andrew Spice out of Toronto. This new tune. It is coming up to 6:30 now. We do have that extreme cold warning for most of western Manitoba this morning. Christy Ramlacan joins us every morning on Infrared. She's going to be here with the business news. Today, she's going to be talking more about the trade relationship in between Canada and the United States. So she'll have a bit of a tee up on that in the next chapter. We're talking about it daily leading up to next week when President-elect Donald Trump will be sworn in. So stay tuned. That's right after your CBC Winnipeg news.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is minus 24. But it's going to be sunny today. Cold comfort when we have a risk of frostbite. With the wind today, it's going to be up to 15 kilometers an hour. So do bundle up for one more day. The province is going to release more details today on its plan to tackle the growing issue of homeless encampments. CBC's Ian Fraze reports.
Manitoba's government is moving to gradually relocate homeless people into more permanent housing. One encampment and a few dozen people at a time. Premier Wapkanu is expected to release more details today. The government will hold a news conference about the plan alongside Winnipeg Mayor Scott Gillingham at 10 a.m. So far, few details are known. Canoe told CBC News in December workers would find homes for everyone living in one encampment and then move on to the next camp. He hasn't answered yet how many people would be supported, where they'd live, or the cost. The NDP's previously promised to find homes for everyone who's been without shelter for at least 6 weeks. The party has said that will take 8 years. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A Winnipegger is taking it upon himself to remove hateful graffiti. Avram Shirak has removed more than 100 tags across the city, including swastikas and messages targeting the Jewish community.
My day job is property management, so we have basically a rule. Graffiti's gone within 24 hours. The haters learn it's not worth hating if you keep removing their hate. But yeah, it's to get rid of the negativity and just leave the positivity.
Shirak says he's also removed graffiti targeting other communities. He hopes others are inspired to step up and help Winnipeg become a place where hate is not tolerated. The federal Conservatives have nominated a familiar face to run this year in Winnipeg South. Janice Morley-Lecomte was a progressive Conservative MLA for Seine River between 2016 and 2023. She served in cabinet when Heather Stephenson was premier. Morley-Lecomte will now seek federal office in Winnipeg South. That riding has been represented by Liberal MP Terry Duguid since 2015. Duguid says he finds her nomination is interesting because she was defeated by the NDP recently. Conservative officials did not respond to CBC News' request to interview Morley-Lecomte. The provincial court judge has ruled a woman's charter rights were violated during an arrest in Garden Hill First Nation in 2023. The woman told a safety officer and RCMP she had been drinking alcohol before hitting her boyfriend with a bus she was driving. The woman was held in custody for nearly 5 hours at a police station. In a written decision released late last month, the judge said the woman was not informed of the reason for her detention, nor was she told of her right right to remain silent or to speak to a lawyer. The judge dismissed the comments the woman made to the officers from the evidence in her case, which involves impaired and dangerous driving charges. A newly released report shows Donald Trump would have been convicted of election interference had he lost the November presidential election. The report from U.S. Special Counsel Jack Smith was released early this morning. It shows there was sufficient evidence to convict Trump of attempting to overturn the 2020 election results. The report accuses Trump of using threats and encouragement of violence against his opponents. Trump pleaded not guilty to those charges, and they were dropped following his November election victory. Mark Carney is expected to formally announce his campaign to replace Justin Trudeau this Thursday. The former governor of the Bank of Canada appeared on The Daily Show last night with Jon Stewart. Stewart even joked Carney was actually announcing his bid during the broadcast.
Congratulations on announcing on this program that you are running to be the leader.
No, Carney stopped short of confirming he was running, but he did take aim at Canada's Conservative leader.
You have Mr. Poilievre, type of politician who's, tend to be lifelong politician.
Really?
Tend to worship the market. They've never actually worked in the private sector.
Right.
Meanwhile, former Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland is also expected to announce she is running to lead the Liberals. A formal declaration is expected from her next week. You can hear more national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. And get set to climb on a winter roller coaster. From frigid this morning to close to melting tomorrow, but the mercury is going to dive right back into the mid-20s by the weekend. Alex Crawford is an assistant professor at the University of Manitoba's Department of Environment and Geography. He says it's all due to the polar jet stream, a sort of dividing line between Arctic air in the north and warmer air from the south.
We're going to get a really big ridge that comes through, and that's going to be followed pretty quickly by a really deep trough. And that's going to lead to really warm temperatures in the middle of the week and then really cold temperatures over the weekend.
The seasonal high this time of year, by the way, is somewhere in the middle, -13. You can find more Manitoba news at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
It's so strange, hey? We had this in December as well, where it was like frigid cold and then all of a sudden it was melting.
Yeah.
So.
Remember, it used to always be like the February thaw, but now it seems it's coming and going.
Yeah, and it's so quickly the way it's coming and going. So, all right, Heather, well, we'll wait for it.
Yeah, I'm waiting.
Abby's here to tell us about today first, which is just cold. Abby?
Yeah, it's just cold, very cold actually. Though we're going to see sunny skies in most parts of the province today, but the chill is something that will be of concern to a lot of people. For Winnipeg and the Red River Valley region, we're looking at temperatures at this time around -24. Clear skies we're seeing. Expect sunny weather and light winds. It will feel much colder with the wind chill factored in. It's going to feel like -36 this morning for folks heading out in the Winnipeg area, but then tonight clouds will increase and then we'll see some blowing snow, similar conditions in the Pembina Valley region. If we head west where we have that extreme cold warning in place, actual temperature at this time -33 in Brandon and surrounding areas. We will also see sunny conditions in that area, but the extreme cold with the wind chills is going to make it feel like -40 this morning for folks in Brandon. So the wind chill actually feels like -40 and actual temperature around -33. In the Parkland region, we're seeing similar conditions, temperatures around -21. Expect this very cold wind chill to reach the -30s for folks in the Dauphin area today. In the Interlake region, we're seeing temperatures around -28 in Gimli. Sunny skies also in the forecast. That should warm up to about -19 and later. The wind chill this morning feels like -38 for folks in Gimli. If we go to the Pa and Flin Flon, we're seeing temperatures around -22. Light snow already falling in that part of the province. The day will be cloudy. This light snow will hang around. The high will be around -10. Though the wind chill makes it feel like -30 this morning. Heading north to Thompson, -26. It is clear there. You should see mostly sunny conditions. Today, the high will be around -18, but the wind chill feels like -39 this morning. And then going farther north to Churchill, where the temperature is around -24. Sunny skies also in the forecast. Light south winds will be felt. The wind chill will make it feel like -36 this morning. And then tonight, it's going to be really cold, and then mostly clear skies. So across board, Marcy, down south, we're seeing clear and cold. If we head west, we're seeing extreme cold, and then we can see chilly conditions in the northern parts of the province. Compared to Winnipeg, that's going to be hitting +1 and +2 tomorrow. I'll take today.
I figured that we should, cheer ourselves up a little bit here. So here's what I'm going to put on Facebook. I'm actually just posting it right now. Finish this sentence. I love the cold because...
drink my cocoa.
There, see, there's always an answer. Even if you kind of don't maybe love the cold, I'm going to say.
I'll just make a cup of hot cocoa.
May, you got this?
I just love the snow.
Ta-da!
Yeah, even if you stay inside. Like,
Right?
I love to see it.
So, and we know we've got between the stay inside folks that cozy in and the folks that are outside exploring Manitoba. Finish the sentence. I love the cold because. Got that up on Facebook, and you can fill it in. May's here, of course, to talk about what's going on with the commute this morning.
I'm seeing in the city we have a stalled vehicle on Lagimodiere and Springfield. It's blocking the southbound median lane, so keep right to pass in that area. Zipper merge once you get some traffic, but currently there's no big delays. And then looking outside of the city of Winnipeg here, if you're heading east out of Winnipeg, there's some partly covered conditions, particularly in the Whitemouth Poplar Bay area, as well as snow-covered conditions on Highway 10 through Riding Mountain towards Dauphin. As well, looking just in the northern side of the province, we're seeing quite a bit of covered conditions and a bit of reduced visibility in northern Manitoba. Anything else going on throughout your commute this morning, let us know, and I'll pass that message on to your fellow listeners. Give me a call, 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, May. May McKillop in for Corey Funk this week. Let's get to business news. Crystal Lee Ramlichan's at her usual post and joins us via Zoom. Hello to you.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So there's been a lot of talk, of course, from President-elect Donald Trump about how Canada benefits from our trade relationship with the United States. What's the reality when you dig into what the numbers look like?
Well, the U.S. benefits just as much as Canada does from the current bilateral trade relationship, and that's according to a new report from economist Jim Stanford. So the reasons for this: Canada is the largest market for U.S. exports. The U.S. exports a large surplus of services to Canada. The U.S. gets raw goods and energy from Canada that it can manufacture into products, and Canadians also buy U.S. debt. So the report says mutual understanding of how a trade war would genuinely hurt both sides is crucial as Trump threatens these tariffs. But Stanford says while both sides would be hit by a similar amount of economic pain in a trade war, Canada would feel it much more because, well, of course, overall our economy is much smaller. Now, Stanford says the trade deficit is actually much smaller than the $200 billion U.S. that Trump has cited. So when goods and services are combined, the U.S. trade deficit was about $40 billion in 2023, and that's according to the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis. And that's because Canada imported more in services from the U.S. than our country exported there. And as Stanford says, the number was likely underrepresented given the difficulty in measuring that kind of category.
Let's go to another story. We have been seeing companies walk back from diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. You've been talking about this on the report. But this morning you have a story of a company that's going in an opposite direction.
Yeah, that's right. So Apple's board of directors has recommended that investors vote against a shareholder proposal to abolish the company's DEI programs. So the National Center for Public Policy, a conservative think tank, submitted the proposal, and the proposal cited recent Supreme Court decisions and made the argument that DEI poses litigation, reputational, and financial risks to companies and could see Apple more vulnerable to lawsuits. But Apple says it has a well-established compliance program and says the proposal was unnecessary. It says the proposal is an inappropriate attempt to micromanage Apple's business strategy. So for more on this, here's Meryl Africa, who is a business consultant and who is also an advocate for DEI.
I talked about this during the George Floyd era, that people were really just too focused on getting those positive headlines or doing feel-good events like, conferences and things, and they weren't really getting at the heart of where the issues are within this system, right? And so it's good to see that companies are saying, even when this is not popular, we are continuing with our strategy because we believe that this is important.
Now, several major companies, including Meta and Amazon, are winding down diversity programs ahead of Donald Trump's return to the White House. And even some conservative groups have threatened to sue some companies, emboldened by a U.S. Supreme Court ruling that struck down affirmative action in university admissions decisions.
Finally, before we look at the numbers this morning, Starbucks is changing some of its customer policies.
Yeah, that's right. So if you're going into the coffee shop, you now have to be prepared to buy something. So the Wall Street Journal is reporting that this month, Starbucks is rolling out a new code of conduct across North America. The coffee giant plans to reverse its policy of allowing the general public to linger or use the bathroom. And the new policies include adding signs banning harassment, violence, threatening language, outside alcohol, smoking, and panhandling. So the new code of conduct is part of the company's effort to make its stores more hospitable, it says. And this is as it seeks to reverse a slide in customer traffic and falling sales. So since 2018, Starbucks has allowed access to its cafes and bathrooms, regardless of purchase. The policy was a response to the arrest of two men after one of them attempted to use the bathroom while the other sat at a table. And the incident drew widespread criticism, and Starbucks even temporarily closed all of its U.S. stores to conduct racial sensitivity training. And, of course, people do appreciate being able to go into a Starbucks to use a bathroom. It can be hard to find a public bathroom sometimes when you're out and about. But employees say the policy can lead to messes, loitering, and inappropriate behavior.
How are the markets looking this morning, Crystalie?
In Europe, markets are higher. Germany is up. The UK is up. France is up. In Asia, markets are mostly on the rise. But right now, Japan is down. Shanghai and Hong Kong are both up. Oil is down 22 cents to $78.60 U.S. per barrel. Gold is up $4.90 to $2,667.40 U.S. per ounce. And the dollar is down 0.02 of a cent to 69.5 cents U.S.
All right, we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Okay, thanks, Marcy.
Thank you. That's Crystalie Brown-Lacan at our business desk with business news from CBC. Well, it is 6:46 a.m. and it's cold today, minus 24 degrees. There's an extreme cold warning issued for areas around Dauphin, Russell, Roblin, Brandon, Neepawa, Pilot Mound, right through Minnedosa and Riding Mountain. We got this call. We asked you to end this sentence. Finish it. I love the cold because...
Hi, my name's Rowena Fisher. I like winter in Winnipeg because it makes people really warm in terms of their behavior. I've noticed since it's got cold, people at the supermarket smile, people help you out. I just think that people change their behavior to counteract the cold. Great, thanks, bye.
Thanks, Rowena. People are writing into us as well already, so apparently you are sparked to answer. Maybe you're sitting somewhere warm, typing away. On Facebook, I love the cold because Allison Blythe said no bugs. Alicia Modeska-Baldovich said can't even, which is not finishing the sentence, but obviously not a big fan of the cold. Ted Franson saying it kills pathogens that thrive in warm weather and it keeps us healthier. Charlotte Price saying it kills ticks. Another one for no bugs. Apparently we really don't like bugs is what I'm getting from this. Andrea Richardson saying I love the cold because I get to do things I cannot do in the summer. Plus I get to explain to people who aren't blessed with minus 30 and I get to see their reaction, and that's priceless. I kind of like that too. We had family in from California over the winter, and you kind of have that moment where you're like, oh, whatever, it's minus 20. I'm so fine with this. Wes Hildebrand saying it makes me appreciate the warmth and the comfort of my home. Tim Stevenson saying I love the cold because it reminds me that it reminds you rather that your 7-year-old car battery needs to be replaced. Hopefully you plugged in. Joanna Plater saying it means sunshine. And I'm kind of with you, Joanna. The coldest days, as we know, are often the clearest days. Like on the weekend, Sunday, with those sun dogs sort of mimicking on, or shadowing rather, both sides of, appearing on both sides of the sun, right in the sky. You see the reflection. And I just love those days where the sky is so blue. And then finally, Shannon Girardin writing, there's no weeding to be done. Yeah, absolutely. I don't miss that about the summertime. So we just thought this morning, because it is cold and usually, we're having a moment with it. We figured we'd go positive. So I love the cold because why? You can finish the sentence online, or you can call our listener line, and that is 788-3205 is where you can reach us. I'm Marcy Marcuso. You're with Information Radio on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube.
Be an Iron Man and curl. No, not your hair. This is curling on the frozen ice of the Assiniboine River. Ironman Outdoor Curling Bonspiel is back February 7th to 9th. Form a team, embrace the winter with one hand, a rock with the other, and join the Ironman Outdoor Curling Bonspiel, sponsored by CBC. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for more.
The cold of winter melted by an array of floral artistry to warm your soul. Fleur de Ville Artiste comes to the Leaf at Assiniboine Park January 16th to 26th. Be dazzled by figurines decorated in flowery fashions, designed by Manitoba's vibrant art scene and blossoming floral talent. Fleur de Ville Artiste, proudly sponsored by CBC. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for more.
It is 10 minutes before 7 o'clock, and I want to mention some ongoing coverage that we'll have for you coming up in the next hour of the program. So it has been a week today since we learned that a man died in the HSC emergency department. He'd been waiting for 8 hours, and we now know there will be an investigation into his death, and a lot of the different things that the story has raised. We've been trying to sort of follow all those different leads and do stories around them. And so one of the biggest things that we did here last week was that at the time of his death, there were at one point 100 people in the waiting room in the ER, and that it's not uncommon, we heard from officials, to see people who are living houseless in the ER, and they're there to warm up. Yesterday on the show, we heard about a pilot project that's been running for a number of months, nearly a year actually. Well, no, I think it opened in October, pardon me, but it's been running for a number of months, where people are diverted from hospital settings into beds. There's 20 of them at a facility on St. Mary's Road, and that is helping with care. And that is if they're going to the hospital and they don't have a medical issue that needs attention. Of course, that's if they're there to warm up. So we're going to continue looking at different things this morning, specifically around that. What is happening in ERs for people that are there, not for healthcare needs specifically. So we are going to be, in the next hour of the program, talking about a new study that has happened, and this is out of Toronto. So we were at the East Coast yesterday. After 7 o'clock, we're going to hear from a researcher from Toronto. They did a study about people experiencing homelessness and using ERs for shelter, and that, of course, is a study that would have been looking at what's happening in that city. But obviously, there's going to be some things that will be relevant to us. So we'll hear more about it coming up after 7 o'clock in our ongoing series of stories here. Next on the program, speaking of things ongoing, let's talk politics. In political news today in Manitoba, you have been hearing Heather say that the federal Conservatives have Janice Morley-Lecomte nominated, who was a progressive Conservative MLA for Seine River. They've nominated her to run this year in Winnipeg South. So we're going to hear more from Heather about that through the morning. But when it comes to federal politics and the Prime Minister, wow, what a difference a week makes. It was just last Tuesday when Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced his resignation. Pardon me, we were analyzing it Tuesday. He announced Monday. And so the field of potential Liberal leadership candidates has drastically thinned out, though, since we first had a major long list. Efforts by all levels of government have ramped up to prevent Trump from imposing 25% tariffs on Canadian goods as well. And to talk about it this morning, Ryan Tumulty is here with Ottawa Report. He's a political reporter with the Toronto Star, and he's on Zoom this morning with us. Good morning, Ryan.
Good morning.
So this clip this morning, let's just talk about it. Mark Carney last night doing the late shows, right? And probably the clip of the morning, I think he said something like, it's not you, it's us, when he was referring to, Canada being taken over by the States. So he has all but officially announced his leadership bid, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The hints are very strong at this point. I think we're all expecting a formal announcement before the end of the week. But certainly, there are other contenders too who we expect to be in this. Chrystia Freeland and former BC Premier Christy Clark, along with some others potentially. So, yeah, the race is starting to shape up for sure.
What's your reaction to those that we're not going to see in the race? So Dominic LeBlanc and Melanie Joly say they will not run.
Yeah, strong contenders, both of them. I know people were saying publicly, MPs were saying publicly they wish Dominic LeBlanc would reconsider. But this is a difficult race to run in. It's you have to come up with $350,000. That's the highest entrance fee ever in a Canadian political race. You have to be prepared to move immediately into a general election. And you have to do all of this in about 3 months' time total. So, it's not an easy race to just decide to jump into, I guess.
Christy Clark, you mentioned former BC Premier Christy Clark. She's considering this possible, considered to be still in the race. We're not sure, but possibly a candidate. She said she misspoke, and I want to take listeners to this moment, when she claimed that she had never been a member of the Conservative Party. So some are actually outright saying she's lied here. However people are viewing this, how damaging could this be to her chance of winning the leadership, do you think?
Yeah, I don't think even Ms. Clark would pretend that this was a good moment for her. I think, ultimately, though, I think what Christy Clark is about a feeling in the Liberal Party that they have drifted too far to the left politically, that they should be back towards the center. The difference between a Jean Charest-led Conservative Party, if that had happened, and a Christy Clark-led Liberal Party would be very thin. And I think that's part of why she supported Jean Charest. She supports more centrist politics. She might support mostly liberal politics, but I think she was a bit more open to something closer to the center. I think there are a fair number of Liberals who are looking for something like that after 10 years of Justin Trudeau at the helm. And I think they may be swayed by that. And I think this, mistake, gaffe, whatever you want to call it, won't necessarily be a factor for those people.
I want to talk trade now before we lose you this morning. So tomorrow, the Prime Minister is expected to meet with the premiers in Ottawa. This relates to how we're going to deal with, the country's going to deal with President-elect Trump, right, around the trade issue. I know that Wab Kinew, our Premier, was in studio last week. He will be at this meeting. What are you watching for in that meeting tomorrow with the PM?
Yeah, so far we've seen a lot of premiers sort of freelancing on this file. Daniel Smith went down to Mar-a-Lago. Doug Ford is all over, U.S. political channels and cable news. But what I don't think we've seen is sort of a unified response here, getting the premiers and the Prime Minister and the federal government sort of singing from the same songbook, as it were. I'll be interested to see if that's something that the Prime Minister can achieve tomorrow, bring them together, because, no Canadian province wants to see these tariffs, but these tariffs will be felt differently across the country depending on the provinces. So I think it'll be interesting to see if, the Prime Minister can bring people together, especially a Prime Minister who's on his way out the door, of course.
We'll leave it there, Ryan. Thank you very much for being with us. And via Zoom, it's nice to see you.
All right, thank you.
That's Ryan Tumulty, who joins us most Tuesdays. He's a political reporter with the Toronto Star, and he takes us into what's happening in Ottawa. We'll hear more, by the way, about the leadership race coming up in a few minutes on World Report. Right now, it is 3 minutes to 7 a.m., and Heather Wells is here to update our headlines.
Good morning. And we've got some news as well heading into that federal election later this year. The federal Conservatives have nominated a familiar face to run in Winnipeg South. Janice Morley-Lecomte was a progressive Conservative MLA for Seine River from 2016 to 2023. She is now going to seek federal office for Winnipeg South, that riding represented by Liberal MP Terry Duguid since 2015. And Duguid says he finds her nomination interesting because she was defeated by the provincial NDP so recently. We are about to get on a winter roller coaster from frigid this morning to melting tomorrow and then diving right back down into the mid-20s this weekend. Brace for it. We'll hear why this is happening in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Right now, it's -24 in Winnipeg. Sunny sky expected today, a high of -19, but with wind chill, it'll feel like -36 in Winnipeg. We have an extreme weather warning, extreme cold warning specifically for Russell, Roblin, Winnipegosis, right through Verdon, Neepawa, Brandon, Pilot Mound, and Riding Mountain National Park, all those areas between. So that is going to be the coldest part of the province this morning and through most of the start of the day here. Take it easy, bundle up, and be careful. It's very slippery where they haven't got sand down. It's just really iced over, especially in the city of Winnipeg on some of the routes. So 788-3093 if you have any updates from in the city or on the highways or in the city where you are. Maybe you're in Brandon or Thompson. Give us a call. Coming up in the next hour of the program, as I mentioned, we're going to be doing ongoing coverage of what is happening with the people who experience homelessness and use ERs for shelters. It's happening across the country, in fact. We're going to talk about a study in Toronto about what they found about that challenge. In addition, in the next hour of the show, if you're tired of waiting in a hospital ER, a Winnipeg doctor is going to be with us to talk about where else you could go. It's the 101 on what's new in 2025 about where to get that care in Manitoba.
Today on The Current.
There are a gazillion rabbit prints embedded in the snow.
A researcher in Edmonton is asking people to notice nature, the small bits of it that they see day to day in the city. And the plan is to measure how the natural world affects our mood, especially in the depths of winter. That's coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland. And on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. A CBC investigation has uncovered someone who might be Canada's most notorious job recruiter. An Ontario businesswoman was caught charging illegal fees to foreign workers more than 30 times. But as Valerie Ouellette reports, she continues to be open for business.
Everything's a lie.
John Kiesel wishes he'd never met job recruiter Janet Mosquito. In 2023, the then international student quit his program and paid her almost $3,000 to secure a work permit.
It was a dream to have a job here, study here, and then my permanent residency, and then I can bring my family, give a future for my son.
She found him a job cleaning hotel rooms, but never came through with the permit. Then stopped replying. His study permit expired, and he can't work legally. He's now living in a homeless shelter.
I can't find a job. I can't even support my son.
CBC found Mosquito was caught by Ontario's Ministry of Labour for charging illegal recruitment fees to foreign workers 35 other times. Each time she paid back the fee, sometimes with a $250 penalty, and went right back to business.
Like a parking ticket,
Toronto-based lawyer Jake Aguilar says punishment needs to be harsher.
You park, you get a violation, you pay. That's it. You can do it again.
Under provincial law, repeat offenders like Mosquito can be charged and face jail time. CBC asked the Ministry of Labour why they haven't pursued that option. They did not answer, but said they will soon introduce tougher measures, including naming and shaming dishonest immigration representatives. CBC tried contacting Janet Mosquito several times, but...
Hello, I'm calling from CBC News. They hung up.
Valérie Ouellette, CBC News, Toronto.
CBC's Welcome to Canada series looks at the reality for newcomers to this country. You can read more at cbcnews.ca. A newly released report shows Donald Trump would have been convicted of election interference if he lost November's election. The report by special counsel Jack Smith was released early this morning. It shows there was sufficient evidence to convict Trump of attempting to overturn the 2020 election results. The report accuses the president-elect of using unprecedented efforts to unlawfully retain power. They include threats and encouragement of violence against opponents. Trump pleaded not guilty to the charges. They were dropped following his election win in November. Qatari mediators say they are close to finalizing a deal for a ceasefire in Gaza. The foreign ministry says the parameters of the agreement between Israel and Hamas are being discussed again today. They include an exchange of Israeli hostages for Palestinian prisoners. The CBC's Sasha Petrusik has the latest from Jerusalem.
The ceasefire deal may be described as closer than ever in Washington and hopeful in Israel. But today, mediators overseeing talks in Doha tried to temper the enthusiasm. Qatari Foreign Ministry spokesman Majed Al-Ansari.
We do believe that we are at the final stages, but obviously until there is an announcement, there will be no announcement. And therefore, we shouldn't be overexcited about what's happening right now. But
nothing is final yet, but leaked details point to a 6-week ceasefire in the first phase, with 34 Israeli hostages released, 3 of them on the first day. Israeli troops would pull back to within 800 meters of the borders, and Gazans would be allowed to return to the north, which is still the scene of intense fighting. Almost 200 Palestinian prisoners would be released from Israeli jails. Families of the hostages are watching impatiently. Simone Lifshitz's father is among those held.
We are desperate to return first the live ones so that they can come back to their family.
In Gaza, too, Palestinians say they're waiting eagerly for a break in Israeli airstrikes that have killed dozens more just in the past days.
We like to be hopeful, but
humanitarian groups say don't expect miracles in terms of aid conditions. Aman Bazarol is with Doctors Without Borders in Gaza.
And I don't see any sign that it's going to improve in the next days and weeks, even with a truce or a ceasefire.
A ceasefire that is close, but still not guaranteed. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Fire crews in California are working to maintain the progress they've made in containing fires near Los Angeles. The Eaton fire is now 1/3 contained. The Palisades fire is about 15% contained. But the captain of the LA Fire Department, Eric Scott, says people cannot go home.
You can't drive through the roads. There's power poles down. There's live, electrical wires that are potentially lethal. The water is not safe to drink. The structures are not standing. Things are collapsing. Fires are still burning.
And the next 24 hours could bring more dangerous fire weather. Steve Futterman has the details.
The winds in and around Los Angeles began to pick up on Monday. Now officials say the real challenge is about to begin. In the next 24 hours, much stronger winds.
Severe fire weather conditions will continue through Wednesday.
Officials are trying to reassure people. LA County Fire Chief Anthony Maroney.
Please be assured that all fire departments will be prepared.
But after last week, when fires ravaged parts of LA, destroying thousands of structures, you can understand why some people are a bit nervous. This woman lives in the Topanga Canyon area where the fire has already caused damage.
We stand to lose everything if the winds blow the fire back into Topanga.
While this resident is worried she will be forced to leave her home.
I actually don't know where I would go, to be honest. I don't have family here. I have friends, but they're all affected.
The National Weather Service says there could be gusts today over 110 kilometers an hour. LA City Fire Chief Kristen Crowley.
We are not in the clear as of yet, and we must not let our guard down.
By Wednesday night, the winds could begin to calm down again, and there is even a slight possibility that by the end of the week, there could be some rain. Steve Futterman for CBC News, Los Angeles.
Dozens of Canadian wildfire fighters are arriving in Southern California to help. Water bombers have been dousing flames overnight, and that work clears a way for ground crews. John Hernandez reports.
Wildfire crews are calling it an air fight. Helicopters carrying thousands of liters of water are among the most effective tools to tame the flames in Southern California. The BC-based Coulson Aviation is among the companies fighting the Eaton and Palisades fires and has been flying its large dual-rotor helicopters around the clock.
We've flown more hours at night than during the day based on the winds.
Wayne Coulson, its CEO, says they've made steady progress over the past 2 days, clearing the way for ground crews to set up containment lines.
We are, of course, worried about the wind kick-up, as you just never know.
Canada's defense minister says dozens of Canadian wildfire fighters have been deployed and more are on the way. The BC Wildfire Service says 22 ground crew firefighters left for LA by truck Monday morning. Information Officer Forrest Towers says they'll be there for up to 2 weeks.
The people that we've sent on the wildland firefighting side are many, many years of experience between them and individually. So they'll bring a lot of knowledge on how to deal with fire.
Alberta Wildfire has sent an additional 40 wildland firefighters to California. 2 Quebec water bombers are already there. One was damaged by a drone but has been fixed. 2 more are expected to arrive on Wednesday. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
The Canadian government's IT service says it has blocked streaming sites on its networks. That means no more Netflix, Disney Plus, or Amazon Prime. Shared Services Canada says those sites were not using a significant amount of bandwidth, but they're not necessary for federal bureaucrats to do their jobs. YouTube, Facebook, and other social media sites can still be accessed by government workers. Mark Carney still will not say whether he intends to run to become leader of the Liberal Party, but the former Bank of Canada governor made one thing clear last night. He appeared on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart and said Canada will never become the 51st state.
I mean, the bottom line is not going to happen.
Because you don't want
well,
to be with...
We're proud. We find you very attractive, but we're not moving in with you. It's not you, it's us.
We want to experiment too. What do you guys want?
We can be friends. There can be a few benefits, John. We're not going to commit all the way. Benefits of trade, benefits of, defense.
Right.
Carney also flirted around the matter of his political career and future, but a source tells Radio-Canada he is planning to launch a Liberal leadership bid Thursday. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, everyone. Live from downtown Winnipeg with our team. I'm Marcy Marcusa, and this is Information Radio on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app, and YouTube. It is so cold this morning. You will have to have plugged in your car. We're at minus 24, and we've got extreme cold warnings for parts of the province. Abby's going to run us down how that looks this Tuesday morning for you in a moment. This hour on the program, due to that cold, in part, a lot of people seek shelter in ERs, emergency rooms in Winnipeg. We've been talking about this since the death of a man in an ER last Tuesday, but the context is in the numbers of the people that were in the room that night, we do know that some of those people were there for shelter. So this is a challenge happening in other places in Canada. Today we're going to take you to Toronto. There's a study there that looked into the hospital ER use to stay warm of people. We're going to talk to the researcher about what they found there. So stay tuned for that. Also, this hour on the program, if you're tired of waiting in hospital emergency rooms overall, we're going to hear from a Winnipeg doctor this hour who's going to share alternative ways to get care in the city. So stay tuned. We're going to navigate the system a little bit with you. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells, who joins us from our news center. Good morning.
Good morning. The province is going to release more details today on its plan to address the growing issue of homeless encampments. The NDP government plans to gradually relocate people, one encampment at a time, into more permanent housing. The Premier is going to tell us just how that's going to be done later this morning. A Winnipegger is fighting hate by becoming a one-man graffiti removal crew. Avram Sharak has taken it upon himself to wipe out graffiti, and he does this work all on his own time. He says he's removed hundreds of anti-Semitic tags in the past year. We'll hear more in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Abby is here now, as mentioned, with our full forecast. Good morning. Yeah.
That's just how I feel this morning. Stepping outside and, seeing the cover and then the ice just cracking underneath me. I'm like, it's going to be a cold one. That's what the condition we'll be looking at like across the province. Though we will see sunny skies, but it's going to be very cold with extreme cold warning in effect for western and central Manitoba and some parts of the north also. Very cold wind chills expected in Brandon and surrounding areas. areas this morning. We're looking at temperatures around minus 30 at this time. Combined with the wind chill, it feels like minus 40. So you want to prepare for that. Conditions in Winnipeg and surrounding areas, it's minus 24 in Winnipeg. We are going to see sunny conditions today, light winds, a high of minus 19, but it will feel much colder with the wind chill factored in. It's going to be feeling like minus 36 this morning. So be cautious of frostbite risk if you're heading out. For the northern part of the province, Thompson, Churchill, just as chilly. Wind chills reaching minus 39 this morning. For the province, very cold, sunny skies. Most of the regions will see that. But for Winnipeg right now, we are at minus 24.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Let's go to May McKillop now, who's in for Corey Funk this week and has our commute details.
Just taking a look at the inside Winnipeg here at Lagimodiere in Springfield. There's a stalled vehicle blocking the southbound median lane. Now, in the last half hour, it said that there were no delays currently, but if you're in the area, I would love to hear an update about that. As well, we got a call from Dan on a bike saying that the streets were a little bit rough and icy, but he was grateful for the cars that let him through on his bike today. And looking outside of the city of Winnipeg, if you're heading east out of the city, you're going to see some partly covered conditions, particularly through the Whitemouth and Poplar Bay area. As well, snow-covered conditions on Highway 10 through Riding Mountain up until Dauphin. And then looking north at the province at some of the highway conditions, most of them are looking partly covered and a bit of reduced visibility around the Leaf Rapids area, actually. Anything else going on across the province or in the city, give me a call and let me know. 204-788-3093.
Well, as I mentioned, let's continue our coverage today about people experiencing houselessness and homelessness who use emergency rooms to stay warm at times. It has been a week since a man died in the Health Sciences Centre ER. Now, the morning that he died, there had been at one point 100 people in the emergency room waiting, and some of them were there for shelter, which has led us to try to learn more about people going to ERs for shelter. Today, we're going to take you to Toronto to explore a recent study that my next guest was part of. Stephen Huang is a physician in general internal medicine and a research scientist at the MAP Centre for Urban Health Solutions at St. Michael's Hospital in Toronto. And the study I'm referring to looked at why people use these ERs to seek temporary shelter. And he joins us via Zoom from Toronto. Hello to you.
Hi, good morning.
So can you tell us, first of all, before we look at what you learned, tell us about the study and what led you to want to look at this?
Well, a few years ago, our colleagues in the emergency department told us that they were seeing a surge in people experiencing homelessness coming to our emergency department simply to seek shelter from the cold. And so we thought actually that it would be important to document this with a research study. So we looked at emergency department use data from across the province of Ontario and looked specifically at use of emergency departments in the winter months by people experiencing homelessness. And what we saw was that there was a dramatic surge, a 70% increase in non-urgent emergency department visits by homeless individuals. And we see this as a clear indicator that a large number of people are coming to our emergency departments simply to seek shelter in times when there's not enough shelter beds or warming centers.
A 70% surge in people seeking shelter. What did that mean? Your study may not have gone this deep, but what did that mean for the actual environment in the ERs and for the impact on medical professionals?
Well, I think from the patient perspective, it meant incredibly crowded emergency department waiting rooms, which we know are crowded at the best of times, but it meant that they were even more crowded. Some of the people seeking warmth would not actually register seeking care. They would simply come and sit in the waiting room. But for those who felt that they needed to provide a reason to be there, they would register with the nurse and be triaged. And this obviously would have the effect of increasing the demand on the doctors and nurses in the emergency department. So we really see our emergency departments becoming a functionally warming centers in the wintertime.
How did you go about getting the results? And was this a study that was done, how recently was it done?
So this study was actually done 2 winters ago, because that's when we first noticed this dramatic increase in the use of emergency departments in Toronto. Our data actually shows, and anecdotal reports indicate, that this is really happening in large and medium-sized cities across Canada now. And we're intending to repeat the study to see if things have gotten worse over the last 2 years.
Did the study lead to any changes, in how intake is done in the emergency departments in Toronto? Because you said you're going to go back and see, whether things have improved.
Yeah, there's really not much that the emergency department needs to do differently. What we have advocated for is that there needs to be more warming centers. And the City of Toronto has changed its warming center policy to increase the availability of warming centers. They open up at less extreme cold temperatures, certainly not as extreme as they are currently in Manitoba. But I think the important take-home point is that we need to have warming center spaces throughout the cold season, so that we don't have people seeking refuge in our emergency departments.
What were some of the reasons that people gave to stay in the emergency department? I know here we've heard, at least from houseless advocates, the reasons why Manitobans and effectively Winnipeggers would choose to go to an ER instead of a shelter. What did you hear in your study?
Well, I think that we didn't look at this in our study, but my colleagues in the emergency department tell me that sometimes people will feel obliged to give some reason just to allow them to stay longer and get warm. And so they might say that they have a cough, or that their feet are numb or painful, or that they're just feeling fatigued and unwell. So often the person will have a legitimate, very mild complaint that they're giving as a reason just to simply allow them to stay longer in the emergency department and warm up.
I'm not sure whether or not this has been, you mentioned that you looked at this 2 years ago and you're planning to go back and see how things are looking now in Ontario. Is the population in Toronto of houseless people ever increasing, and that has led to what some of the challenges with having more people out on the street? Or is this an effect of post-COVID, having more people without shelter? I'm just trying to get a sense of the trajectory of how things have progressed in your province.
Well, unfortunately, there's pretty clear evidence that the number of people experiencing homelessness has increased significantly in the last 2 years. In the city of Toronto, the numbers have increased by about 20% at least. And a recent report suggests that there are more than 80,000 people homeless in Ontario right now.
How should, on the ER side of things, as people continue to come into those, to the ER that maybe don't have medical needs, as you said, but they want shelter and need shelter, how does staff, address and deal with some of those concerns? What has been happening in the ERs there?
Well, I mean, our staff try to be very sensitive. They're very aware of the reasons that people are coming in, and so they will understand if someone basically gives the reason that they really have just basic survival needs. They may say they need warmth, they need a warm jacket, they may need just some food and a chance to warm up. So our emergency department has a program that specifically meets those non-medical needs of people experiencing homelessness. I think that it's simply understanding that people are not doing this, out of for convenience or because they had any other choice. They're really doing it as a desperate last measure.
Well, given that we're talking obviously cross province here, and yesterday we were actually talking to Nova Scotia. So I mean, across the country, there's different research going on, try to figure out what's going on here and how to do better. And obviously, shelters comes up as one of the big solutions. But what do you hope that the hospital administrators do with the results of your study?
Well, I think that what our hospital has done, and what I think every hospital that is seeing this should do, is think about ways that are not necessarily medical interventions, services that they can either provide or link people to that would help people, get what they need rather than staying unnecessarily long periods of time in the emergency department waiting room. And that would be better for them and the healthcare system.
Is there anything that I have neglected to ask you that you wanted to say this morning?
Well, simply, it's just the obvious fact that we really want people to simply have a place to be warm and survive the cold. And if we don't provide those spaces, our emergency departments will fill up with people seeking warmth.
Appreciate having you on to tell us about your study. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is Stephen Huang, who's a physician in general internal medicine and a research scientist at MAP Center for Urban Health Solutions at St. Michael's Hospital in Toronto. So I just want to mention that we have another health story coming up this hour on the program as well. If you are going to an ER, there is a question of whether or not you understand where else you may be able to go in our system. So we're going to talk about navigating the healthcare system if you're tired of waiting in hospital emergency rooms. What are your other options in Winnipeg specifically?
For breaking news as it happens, stay with CBC News. For the latest updates and what it means for Canadians, stay with CBC News. When the biggest stories break, both at home and around the world, stay with CBC News.
You know what helps on a cold morning? Jumping around. So we're going to give you some music that you can do that too. Bit of indie rock out of a band, from a rock band from Toronto as well. They're called Arenas. This is 681.
Heart stuck in the fast lane, no level of traffic could stop it anyway. Waiting brought me no difference. No, it's the time, it's the love that has boiled in your blood. Tragedy slowly, moments of hoping I could extend every second out. Crept in the basement and I couldn't face it. Where'd you go, my friend? Fear God leveled in. Where'd you go, my friend? Fear God, the best of us, but we let it back in. Get me back to what we had before. Lately, I'm feeling confident.
Out of Toronto, this is 681. Band is called Arenas. So let's take you to one. See what I did there, Scott Ricker?
Very, very clever.
Yeah, except we're actually starting with tennis, but that's okay.
That's in an arena, just in Australia.
Okay. We will get to hockey too, by the way. But what is the latest from down under?
Game, set, and match. Diallo. 3 sets to 2.
That's the sound of Montreal's Gabriel Diallo, Marcy, prevailing in his first-round match. It took more than 4 hours to beat his Italian opponent, but Diallo, at age 23, wins for the first time in the main draw of the Aussie Open. Among other things, he now has some extra money to cover the expenses of flying to the other side of the world. First-round winners in Melbourne are getting a record $200,000 Canadian. It is a stipend Denis Shapovalov will be receiving as well. El Chapo won his first-round match this morning. As for the women's draw, Naomi Osaka has won her opening contest. A straight sets triumph, Marcy. That was very impressive when you consider what she's been having to deal with away from the court. Osaka's home is in Los Angeles. She has a wildfire burning just 3 blocks away from it right now, and she was asked what it's like juggling tennis, well, with real life.
I'm not there, so I don't know how bad it is or how bad it's going to get. Honestly, I don't think I've been doing the greatest keeping focus, but obviously I won, so I think it's an acceptable job. It is really difficult for me because I find my home is more of a home because I have memories with my daughter. But I think the biggest thing that I am grateful for is that everyone in my family is safe.
Just before her match in Melbourne today, Marcy, Osaka contacted a friend back in Los Angeles to go retrieve her infant daughter's birth certificate from the house lest it get burnt down. So can't imagine how they're competing with this having to dealt with so far away as well.
Right. Now, the fires in LA were top of mind during an NFL playoff game last night as well. I watched this one. It was, I wondered if it was why LA was propelled to come out like they did and take this game.
So you watched it from the beginning then, right?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, it's same. Even before the Vikings and Rams kicked off, Marcy, that stadium in Glendale, Arizona, things were so emotional. Former LA Super Bowl champion Andrew Whitworth grabbed a microphone at one point. He addressed the crowd saying, quote unquote, "We are strong. We will not be defined by this devastation. We will rebuild LA hand in hand together." They cut to Sean McVay, the LA coach at that point. You could see tears, and he's as stoic as they come. Tears welling up in his eyes listening to Whitworth, his former player. So the Rams did their part. They easily beat Minnesota. Here is Sean McVay.
Man, I'm really proud of our team tonight. I thought with everything that's gone on with our community, everything that these guys have gone through, I thought they epitomized and they represented the city the right way. You talk about sports offering a platform for people to come together, offer a little bit of temporary relief, and I thought the way that our team competed tonight was what it looked like.
Yeah, the Vikings had the better record heading into last night's game, but with the emotion the Rams are playing with everything going on back home, it never really looked like Minnesota had a chance. And what a job by Arizona hosting this game. Cardinals owners took care of the whole bill, flying in the players, painting the field in Rams colors. It was something to see.
Yeah, I agree. To the game itself, a lot of sad Vikings fans in Manitoba this morning, though, yeah.
Listen, I hear you, and we're not going to see the quarterback play as good a season as he had. We're not going to see him play again for the Purple, I don't think.
Let's end with hockey. Speaking of that arena, the Jets host the Canucks tonight.
Yeah, Canucks, third best road team in the league against the Jets, one of the best home sides in the NHL right now. But they're not alone in terms of Canadian teams performing well. All 7 NHL clubs could make the playoffs this year, the way things are going. And Jets coach Scott Arniel was asked about it.
I think it's great for Canada. Great to see all these teams. Everybody's improving. Everybody has kind of had to go through some changes over the last few years, and everybody's it's happened on the fly, and teams have stayed competitive and just kind of restocked the shelf and up and running again. And that's one thing Trump can't take from us. So we've got good Canadian teams.
Wonder what the True North chant will sound like during the anthem tonight. 7 o'clock, puck drop.
All right, thanks a lot, Scott. Talk to you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
With CBC Sports on the morning show here, that is Scott Reguer joining us. In the forecast, very, very cold. In traffic, we have Lashmody and Springfield, a stalled vehicle now blocking the south median lane. Keep right to pass. We're not sure if that's cleared or not. Please update us on the commuter line at 788-3093. And your news is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it's minus 24. If you're out of the airport, it's even colder, minus 27. But it's a bright cold. We are going to see a lot of sun today as we warm up to minus 19 with a risk of frostbite. The province will release more details today on its plan to tackle the growing issue of homeless encampments. CBC's Ian Fraze reports.
Manitoba's government is moving to gradually relocate homeless people into more permanent housing. One encampment and a few dozen people at a time. Premier Wapkaniw is expected to release more details today. The government will hold a news conference about the plan alongside Winnipeg Mayor Scott Gillingham at 10 a.m. So far, few details are known. Commute told CBC News in December workers would find homes for everyone living in one encampment and then move on to the next camp. He hasn't answered yet how many people would be supported, where they'd live, or the cost. The NDP's previously promised to find homes for everyone who's been without shelter for at least 6 weeks. The party has said that will take 8 years. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A Winnipegger is fighting hate by becoming a one-man graffiti removal crew. Avram Sharak has taken it upon himself to wipe out graffiti he and other community members find offensive. He does this work all on his own time.
It helps me deal with the hate, helps me feel I can make a bit of a difference, helps me sleep better at night. I feel better when I can do something to make the world a little bit better, and right now it deserves a lot of better than it's getting all over the world, not just my community.
Chirac says he has removed hundreds of anti-Semitic tags in the past year, including some swastikas spray-painted outside a Winnipeg synagogue. He says he has removed graffiti targeting other communities as well. Chirac hopes to inspire others to keep fighting hate. The federal Liberals have nominated a candidate for the riding of Winnipeg South. As CBC's Bartley Kivas reports, it is a familiar face for Manitobans.
Manitoba's government is moving.
And we will get that story for you right now.
Janice Morley-Lecomte was a progressive conservative MLA for Seine River from 2016 to 2023. She served in cabinet when Heather Stephenson was premier. Morley-Lecomte will now seek federal office in Winnipeg South. Since 2015, it's been represented by Liberal MP Terry Duguid. Conservative officials did not respond to CBC News' request to interview Morley-Lecomte. Duguid says he finds her nomination interesting because she was defeated by the NDP relatively recently.
Manitobans were pretty clear about the previous Manitoba Conservative government in showing them the door.
Duguid faces a challenge of his own. The Liberals trail the Conservatives in the polls, and in every election since 1988, the party that won the most seats also won Winnipeg South. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A provincial court judge has ruled a woman's charter rights were violated during an arrest in Garden Hill First Nation in 2023. The woman told a safety officer and RCMP she had been drinking alcohol before hitting her boyfriend with a bus she was driving. The woman was held in custody for nearly 5 hours at a police station. In a written decision released late last month, the judge said the woman was not informed of the reason for her detention, nor was she told of her right to remain silent or to speak to a lawyer. The judge dismissed the comments the woman made to the officers from the evidence in her case, which involves impaired and dangerous driving charges. Former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney still has not officially declared his intention to run for the Liberal leadership, but he came awfully close last night. He was a guest on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart.
It's really difficult for a candidate to come in who is saddled with the policies that are on.
But let's say,
oh boy,
the candidate wasn't part of the government. Let's say the candidate did have a lot of economic experience. Let's say the candidate did deal with crises. Let's say the candidate had a plan to deal with the challenges in the here and now.
Sneaky, you're running as an outsider.
I am an outsider.
But Carney did not come out and say he plans to run. A source close to him tells Radio Canada an official launch is planned for Thursday. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. Well, get set to get bounced around. Manitoba temperatures are about to skyrocket from well below normal to melting. Starting tomorrow. Blink and you miss it, though, because temperatures will dive back to the mid-20s by the weekend. Alex Crawford says it's all part of winter in Canada. He's an assistant professor at the University of Manitoba's Department of Environment and Geography.
First of all, this is normal. This is what we expect to have happen in winter, so we shouldn't be too freaked out. But then the second thing for that kind of short answer is the easiest mechanism to talk about for all of this is what we call the polar jet stream.
Crawford says this week's forecast calls for a big ridge moving through, followed soon by a deep trough. And you can hear more on this story following World Report at 8 right here on Information Radio. You can find more Manitoba news at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Let's go positive, Heather. Someone once told me if you can go negative or positive, go positive.
I agree. I love it.
So you ready? Comments from listeners this morning on Facebook, and we had some calls as well. You can call. We asked you to finish this sentence. I love the cold because it fosters creativity. No spiders, no gators, no deadly snakes. Because it serves as a freezer for the oversized ice cream cake I bought that wouldn't fit in my girlfriend's parents' fridge. I do actually like putting things outside that need to be cold.
I've done it so many times.
Right? Or if you're having a gathering and it's just cold enough that the beverages won't freeze, it's like perfect. Amanda Buse is saying the sparkling snow, the air is crisp, it's fresh to breathe, and I can cuddle under a warm blanket on a cold night and watch a movie inside. People talking about the clear and sunny skies. Kevin Champagne posting a picture of himself and his dogs out there saying having fun with the dogs. They're pulling him on a sled. And Jojo Picoco saying it's always sunny and it makes your cheeks rosy. Wet, rainy winters suck. So I feel like that's a jab at BC. But yeah, a lot of people writing in about what they love about wintertime. And others just, you'll like this. This will be for you, Heather. So the first comment that came in when I said finish this sentence, I love the cold because, or it was, sorry, in the first 5, Tanya Williams simply put a thumbs down and said, nope.
I feel you, Tanya.
Okay, so not everyone's into it. Okay, we get it. But thanks to you, to those of you that did write on our Facebook page. So this is my Marcy Marcusa page, and during the show, it acts as a show page. You can call as well, by the way, 788-3205. Okay, Heather mentioned it, but Abby's going to elaborate on it. It's time for our regional forecast on CBC to look at what the day is going to bring.
Ever experienced the pets wanting to go out for a lake and they just put one paw out and like, nope, I'm going to hold it.
Oh, yeah. Every day, as I say on the air. Yeah, those bulldogs, they are backing up into the house like I'm holding it all day. Just watch me.
Anyway, we're gonna have sunny skies across the province today, though will be coming with extreme cold warnings, which is in effect for a lot of the regions, especially the Brandon region and the Dauphin region, and the further up north you go. But for Winnipeg and the Red River Valley region, we're looking at temperatures around minus 24 at this time. Clear skies we're seeing. We will get that sunny conditions, but it will be a frigid day. The high for the city will get to around minus 19. Though the wind chill is going to make it feel like minus 36 this morning, and then it just improves to about minus 28 in the afternoon. Tonight, clear skies and cloudy conditions will come overnight. Similar conditions we're seeing in the Pembina Valley regions. Wind chills around minus 37 this morning. Heading west of Brandon, minus 32 at this time. Expect sunny skies with extreme cold. The wind chills for that region feels like minus 40 already this morning. The high will be around minus 16. Tonight, partly cloudy skies. Some local blowing snow will sweep in. Will still gust up to 50 kilometers for that region in the Westman area. Minus 24 in Dauphin at this time. The Parkland region should expect some extreme cold. We also have that warning in place for the region. Wind chills making it feel like minus 30 this morning. The high will get to minus 12 with sun and clouds in the forecast. In Gimli, we're looking at temperatures around minus 28. Clear skies also we're seeing in the Interlake region. Expect sunny conditions later. We'll see some light breeze. High will be around minus 19. The wind chill for that region feels like minus 38 this morning already. Tonight, expect some clear conditions and light breeze, and temperatures will be dipping further to a low, well below freezing. In the Palm Flin Flon, we're seeing temperatures around minus 21 already. Cloudy skies, light snow in play already for that region. The high will reach minus 10, though the wind chill feels like minus 30 this morning, and it should ease to about minus 18 as you get into the afternoon. Then we move north to Thompson, where temperatures already at around minus 27 at this time. Expect sunny conditions also for folks in Thompson. Light winds will come. Highs will be around minus 18. The wind chill makes it feel like minus 30, minus 39 this morning. Temperatures will definitely will drop to around minus 28 later in the day. And then further north in Churchill, we're looking at temperatures around minus 24. Some ice crystals spotted in that part of the province. Expect sunny conditions later. Light winds, high minus 16. Wind chill makes it feel like minus 36 this morning. So across board, Marcy, we're just seeing this extreme cold being distributed around, but with Winnipeg seeing clear conditions and sunny skies in the forecast, though there's still like that bitter cold outside.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
On the commute this morning, let's check the conditions with May McKillop.
Well, here in the city, we were looking at a stalled vehicle on Lajamodier at Springfield, and that stalled vehicle was blocking the southbound median lane. I haven't had an update of that area, so if anyone is driving through there, if it's cleared, call and let me know if it's causing some delays. I'd like to hear about that too. As well, we got a call from Dan on a bike saying that if you're commuting by bike, the streets are a little bit rough and icy, but the cars were being generous to him this morning. And just looking outside of the city across the province, we're seeing some partly covered conditions if you're heading east outside of Winnipeg, particularly through the Whitemouth and Poplar Bay area, although I can see that there's some plows going through there now. As well, we're we're seeing along Highway number 10 in the Dauphin region some partly covered conditions, and also moving north into the province, looking at partly covered conditions through Thompson, and as well partly covered and a bit of reduced visibility around Leaf Rapids area. Anything going on out there in your commute? If you want to let your fellow listeners know, give me a call and I'll pass that message on. 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, May. Well, we were just talking about January and how the cold can get some people down. The other thing that a lot of people, have in common in this month is some financial stress and maybe even some financial blues, post-holiday bills coming in and such. Well, Shannon Lee Simmons this morning has some ideas to take the edge off. She's a certified financial planner and a chartered investment manager.
So the number one thing to do is to not panic. Open the bill, open the credit card, open your banking app. So I think that that's actually the first thing, because a lot of people will ignore it if they know it's going to be scary. So open it, breathe through the moment. And then if you do have access to a line of credit, secured or unsecured, that is in a lower interest rate, don't be afraid to pay off in one fell swoop the high interest rate credit card debt, the thing that happened to you. Just pay it off and consolidate, because at least even if all you can do is make that minimum payment, as long as you're paying it at a lower interest rate than, say, a credit card, which could be as high as 22, 23%, then at least you're hitting some principles. So consolidate that first. It is the easiest, fastest thing you can do should you have access. And with that, we can make a plan. And often when you see that there's hope, it feels less scary. So if you're in a situation where you really overspent and it's painful and you can't tackle it right away, and it's going to be here for some time with you, I think that might be something that would be like, oh, I don't want to be in this situation again. I don't like the way it makes me feel. I feel out of control, because debt is like a hangover, right? It's like it's the past haunting you today, unlike savings, which feels very exciting emotionally because you're building a future. It's about hope. Debt is a hangover. So if you're in a situation where you don't want to be like that again, then yeah, making the plan to not be like that in the future. There's a difference between being an overspender as a money personality type and having overspent. So those are two different things. So if we're talking about a person who just went wild, booked a trip that now they're like, oh my gosh, what have I done? I would say that person is probably very afraid, but also in a more hopeful position, because they're like, well, learn my lesson, won't do that again. If you're a person who is kind of a chronic overspender or life is just so expensive now, that sort of, I'm saying this in quotations, living within your means is becoming harder and harder and harder. So there's this sort of ever increasing bill. That is a scarier place to be. And so the reductions in spending that you're going to have to do to tackle that are going to be painful. I would just say that I want anyone who's in that position, whether you overspent or you're overspending, to not lose hope. I know that sounds a bit Pollyanna when we talk about things, and somebody might be rolling their eyes being like, yeah, okay. But honestly, I have found that giving up completely is when it leads to absolute spiraling. So there's always hope. There's always something that you can do that may not feel as scary as you might think it would be. So making that realistic plan, so much of debt is just about getting cozy with it, might be with you for a while, and stopping this extreme sort of punishing budgeting that happens often at this time of year, where you're like, I'm never going to do this, and I'm never going to spend that, and I'm never going to do this, and I'm going to get this. And then obviously you set yourself up for failure. And when you fail at your financial plan, you start this immediate negative self-talk loop that says, I'm bad with money. See, I can't even stick to my plan. But maybe the plan was so unrealistic that no one could stick with it except for those very extreme people.
I love the quote she had, debt is like a hangover. Shannon Lee Simmons is a certified financial planner and a chartered investment manager with some advice about how to frame things this month if you've got a little bit of the post-holiday debt blues.
Arctic glaciers, the Amazon rainforest, the Great Barrier Reef. Unique tourism destinations because they are vanishing. Last Chance Tourism on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on demand on CBC Listen.
When you have to leave everything behind,
you're just trying to find a way to stay here for a better life.
What are the real costs of making a new start?
I have faced so many hardships financially, emotionally, and physically.
A CBC News series looks at what it's really like for newcomers.
I am losing hope.
Welcome to Canada, the immigrant experience.
Prepare yourself, because coming here is not that easy.
Everywhere you get CBC News.
So tomorrow's high is 1 degree. I mean, let that sink in. It's minus 24 right now, right? So what's going on? We had this in December too, where it was like really cold, and then all of a sudden it was melting. So we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on. You heard a bit in the news. We'll have a full interview coming up after 8 on this. Also, I want to mention that after 8, we will be looking at a preview of a new festival in Winnipeg that puts a spotlight on Indigenous theatre. So stay tuned for that. Next on this show, let's turn our attention back to what is happening with wait times in Winnipeg hospitals. They are high. Now, when compared to the national average of 5.2 hours, all 3 of the city's emergency departments had longer wait times for most patients. That's according to data from the Canadian Institute for Health Information, or CIHI. And as of November, according to other data, this is from the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority's monthly report, Health Sciences Centre wait times were at 13.16 hours. But there are ways that you, of course, can avoid a wait in the ER. From minor injury and illness clinics to walk-ins, the city does have other options. But you may not actually have a full understanding of how to navigate everything. So that's what our next interview is about, to learn about the options out there. Dr. Amanda Condon is with Shared Health and joins us via Zoom this morning. Hi there.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. So I know that it's interesting, having done this show for a long time in the community. We do this interview time to time because people sort of, whether you forget or whether it's because in the moment of need, you know, that emergency for you, you might just go straight to an ER. But maybe that's not where, like, there might be a better option for you. Can we start with just running down the options that Manitobans have if they're seeking care?
Absolutely. And we actually, especially in Winnipeg, have a number of new options over the last year. So certainly, any time that you're facing any sort of minor injury or illness, your best course of action is to try and reach out to your primary care provider and see if you're able to get an appointment with them. Recognizing that that is challenging currently for lots of people in terms of accessing their primary care providers, and lots of people don't have access. Walk-in clinics, which we've had in Winnipeg and Manitoba for a long time, are another good point of access to be able to reach out to someone and see if they can get an appointment. Oftentimes, walk-in clinics are only available sort of daytimes, maybe mornings on the weekends, but not always a lot of access evenings and weekend hours. And so in Winnipeg now, we have 2 extended hours primary care clinics that are available, one on the Grace campus and one on the Concordia Hospital campus. And these clinics provide same-day primary care access evenings and weekends. You also can access care through minor injury and illness clinics, a new one opening up at Misericordia. These clinics are available during the day and also on weekends. There's a lot of overlap between what sorts of services that you can access through these clinics, but mostly this is that sort of same-day need for things that you need care for.
There's a lot of information that was just shared there. So where can you actually walk in, and where do you need an appointment? Because I know at some of the minor injury spots, for example, things were shifted. I know years ago there used to be one on Corydon that supplement the system. It was great, but now you do need an appointment there. So is there a way to distinguish where you need appointments and what is actually walk in now?
Yeah, so the myrightcare.ca website is a great place to go to get that information. And the great thing about that website is it lists all of the walk-in clinics and all of the various places that you can access care. And for many of these clinics that do book online appointments, so you can book, that way you don't have to wait. You go when the time is set for you. You can book all of that online and see some of the options that are available for you. The extended hours primary care clinics, so those are those evening and weekend clinics at Concordia Hospital and at Grace Hospital, are primarily same-day bookable online, but they also do take walk-ins. So there are appointments reserved every day to accommodate people who walk in. The minor injury and illness clinics are primarily same-day bookable, so same thing, you could go online and book an appointment for a time for you. Walk-in clinics across Winnipeg are variable in terms of who takes walk-in. We know the experience with walk-in clinics now is oftentimes they're full. That My Right Care website is a great place to go as well, because then you can get a kind of a one-stop to see what's available and then have contact information to call ahead and see what's available.
So you're talking I'm just going to say this because you mentioned it a couple times, myrightcare.ca. Or is it .com? Yeah. Okay, .ca.
.ca.
Yeah. I interjected. Sorry, you were going on to say something.
That's okay. Oh, just to say that Health Links is also another option for people. So if you're not sure where the best place to go, connecting with Health Links can be a good option as well. And they can sometimes help to direct people to appropriate resources through the extended hours primary care clinics are new, but certainly in the times that I've worked there have had people who've said, HealthLink suggested that I come in. Then they were able to navigate to the website, book an appointment online, and we were able to see them the same day.
When you're in a moment of crisis in your own family, of course, or especially if you have a child, I would argue, right? Like, I shouldn't say especially, but it can be very stressful if you have a child, you know what's going on with them. People might just still say, I'm still going to emerge. What's this, if you feel it's an emergency, but you're not quite sure, what would be the second thing that you would go to? If you don't go to emergency, what's your first choice after that? Pardon me, is how I should phrase that.
Yeah, great question, and a little bit hard to answer, right? Because there is some nuance there. I would think that the place where you can be seen is going to probably be the next best place. So the place that you know that you can get an appointment and that you can see someone. The good thing about accessing care through any of these options, and we've purposefully designed things to make it easy for people to access care, as easy as we can, given the constraints that we currently have, that if you end up in a place where you're if you end up in an extended hours primary care clinic, for example, and you really need to be seen in an emergency department, the staff and the provider and the team working in that clinic will work with you to make sure that transition over to the right place is as seamless and easy as possible.
Can I just ask you, just because you brought that up, sort of the new options, right, that are on site at the Grace, and then the Ms, as you mentioned, and Concordia. So those will be the three. If that in the future, as you said, if you do need emergent care and you're there, they could put you to the emergency room. Are we at the stage in our system yet where it goes the other way, where the emergency rooms can refer to those clinics? Like, is that the purpose of having them on site?
That's one of the goals that we're hoping to get to. And we want that to happen in a safe and patient-centered and seamless way. So we want people to feel that they're accessing care where they need it. But if someone presents, for example, to an emergency department and they're triaged by the staff there as a lower acuity patient, that they may be presented with options around seeking care somewhere else and then working to transfer the care over to one of the other clinics that's available.
I can hear listeners probably, I always say I can hear listeners in my head talking to the radio, and the one thing that in our conversation that isn't there is a 24-hour option, right? I wonder whether or not more people are going to ERs for anything and everything, because overnight that's what's open. What in the system should they understand could be an option for them in the middle of the wee hours of the morning, so to speak?
Yeah. Certainly, I think the overnight care is challenging, and you're right, there aren't a lot of other or really any other options outside of emergency departments. What I would say is that if you feel like you need care overnight that can't wait till the morning, an emergency department may actually be the ideal place for you to seek care. And as we're rolling these new clinics out, we've talked about a number of models, in the last 5 minutes, all of which are new. Measurement and evaluation is a really important part of what we're doing here to try and get a sense of who's accessing care with what types of medical issues, what's bringing them, what time of day are they coming, to get a sense of what that need and demand is. Certainly what we've seen so far with these new extended hours primary care clinics is that people are accessing care in the evenings and even until 11 o'clock at night. So I think we are providing a service that's meeting people's needs.
I want to throw two quick scenarios at you. So with a child that is ill, do you go to the Children's Hospital emergency room specifically, or do you go to your closest hospital ER? Obviously, it's dependent on how urgent things are, but I wonder whether or not you should be thinking specifically about the kids' hospital.
Yeah, great question. I mean, again, I think your point is exactly correct. It depends on how urgent. If you have a little kid with you that's very, very sick, you want to take them to the closest place. And they, again, will be able to direct care. Generally speaking, for children, Children's Hospital is a good place to bring them and is quite reasonable. But for those kiddos that are, you want them to be assessed. You're not too worried. They're not, you're just not sure. You need them to be seen. The extended hours primary care clinics are great places to bring them.
I twisted my ankle. I'm not sure if it's fractured or not. Am I going to ER, or should I wait it out if I can and book it minor injury?
Definitely. I think trying to book for one of those clinics, minor injury clinics, even extended hours primary care sometimes can be a good option. We do have access to x-rays and blood work through those clinics and through minor injury as well. So oftentimes that scenario is the perfect example. I twisted my ankle. I'm not sure. I feel like it needs an x-ray. The minor injury and illness clinics and the extended hours primary care clinics can be good options.
And just Dr. Condon, as a last question here, if someone decides that they ultimately do have to go to emergency, it's the right place for them. Do you have any advice for how they might be able to make their stay as short as possible?
I think if you do have any chronic conditions, making sure that you bring your medications with you, or certainly a list of your medications, being really upfront when you check in about who your primary care provider is, so that you can help to make sure that information flow goes. If possible, if you have a family member or someone who knows that you're going, depending on the circumstance, can be helpful with that information sharing piece and things like that.
Thank you very much for being with us this morning. We appreciate you being on the program.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Via Zoom, that's Dr. Amanda Condon, the medical specialty lead of family medicine with Shared Health. Remember that website if you are looking to navigate the system and the new choices within it, myrightcare.ca. Heather Wells is here with news headlines.
Good morning. Well, later this morning, the province will release more details on its plan to address the growing issue of homeless encampments. The NDP government plans to gradually relocate people one encampment at a time into more permanent housing. The federal Conservatives have nominated a familiar face to run this year in the federal riding of Winnipeg South. Janice Morley-Lecomte was a PC MLA for Seine River from 2016 to 2023. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 8:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
The drive's been pretty good this morning. Call us if there's a commuter problem. 788-3093. We're still at minus 24. But don't worry, tomorrow it's going to be 1. What's going on with the wild swings in weather? That interview is coming up after 8. I'm Marcy Marcusa with the team at Information Radio. You're on CBC 89.3 FM.
Today on Q with Tom Power. Sindhu V has become one of the most in-demand comics and actors in the UK, but her path to comedy wasn't exactly straightforward. Sindhu talks about why she traded in a life as an investment banker for the life of a stand-up and the strange similarities between the two.
In banking, I was paid properly, while in motherhood, not so much.
That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
A researcher in Edmonton is asking people to notice nature, the small bits of it that they see day to day in the city. And the plan is to measure how the natural world affects our mood, especially in the depths of winter. That's coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. A new report says Donald Trump would have been convicted for election interference if he had lost November's election. The Department of Justice report by Special Counsel Jack Smith was released early this morning. It shows that there was significant evidence to convict Trump of trying to overturn the 2020 election results. The CBC's Richard Madden joins me now from Washington. Richard, what can you tell us about the report?
Yeah, it's a big one, 130 pages where outgoing special counsel Jack Smith essentially defends his investigation into Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election. He says Trump abused his power, pressured state officials, and, quote, inspired his supporters to commit acts of physical violence when the votes were being certified on January 6, 2021, in a series of criminal efforts to retain power. Now, Smith resigned last week ahead of Trump's inauguration, and he denies accusations his case was politically motivated, saying it's, quote, laughable. But he does acknowledge he had an uphill battle to begin with, citing the U.S. Constitution that bans prosecuting a sitting president. But it's all now moot, since Trump would have fired Smith anyway.
One of Donald Trump's nominees will be in the hot seat today. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, this is a busy week on Capitol Hill where a dozen of Trump's cabinet picks will face confirmation hearings. And today, his controversial Secretary of Defense, former Fox News host and combat veteran Pete Hegseth, will face a grilling for his past accusations of sexual assault, alcohol abuse, financial mismanagement, and his views about women in combat. Here's Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer.
If there's any cabinet position that ought to have a steady and drama-free individual,
it is certainly Secretary of Defense. Unfortunately, Mr. Hegse's background is deeply troubling.
Now, later this week, some other controversial nominees will face hearings. Vaccine skeptic Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to lead health, and Tulsi Gabbard, who's accused of cozying up with America's adversaries. But Republicans are feeling confident they have the votes to confirm them.
All right. Thank you, Richard.
Thanks.
The CBC's Richard Madden in Washington. Qatar's foreign ministry says a ceasefire deal for Gaza is close. Negotiations are expected to resume today to secure an agreement between Israel and Hamas. It would include a swap of Israeli hostages for Palestinian prisoners. And Majid Al-Ansari is a ministry spokesperson.
The talks that are ongoing now are on the final details of reaching an agreement. However, it's very important not to or raise the expectations to a level that doesn't link to what's happening on the ground right now. We do believe that we are at a developed stage. We do believe that we are at the final stages, but obviously until there is an announcement, there will be no announcement.
If the deal goes ahead, it would roll out in 3 phases. The first would include a 6-week ceasefire and the release of more than 30 Israeli hostages. Gusty winds in Los Angeles are threatening the progress made by wildfire fighters. The Santa Ana winds are forecast to peak mid-morning. They could blow sparks and fan the flames of the 2 biggest fires. They're only just partially contained. Steve Futterman is in Los Angeles with the latest. And Steve, how are the winds right now?
Well, the winds are, in my area in Pacific Palisades, they are decent, mild right now, but they're expected to pick up throughout the day. And in other areas, they will be stronger or less, depending on where you are. Now, the PDS, the particularly dangerous situation red flag alert, is now in effect. It will continue for the next 36 hours or so. And this is the time that the National Weather Service says really the conditions are ripe to have either new fires or reignite these other fires. Now, it's up to Mother Nature. If the winds are stronger than anticipated, they could have problems. They're pretty confident that if they get a bit of luck, they'll be able to be okay.
Steve, thousands of buildings have been burned. Tens of thousands of people are out of their homes. What kind of aid are people getting?
Well, they're getting aid from various charities. They're getting aid from the government. They're getting aid from local jurisdictions and also FEMA. Obviously, right now, if you've been locked out and forced out of your home, there are many things you have to face. The most important is housing. They do have, obviously, shelters set up. They have also, in many cases, people are staying with relatives and friends, but there are so many people displaced that it has become a bit of a problem. We've heard of people who have to stay in their cars. Their vehicles become their home as well. It's a very troubling situation for just about everyone who's been forced to leave.
All right. Thank you, Steve.
My pleasure, Marcia.
Freelance reporter Steve Futterman in Los Angeles. A March 9th selection date is looming. Time is running out for the Liberals, still considering running for their party's leadership. And some of the most senior party members still have not made their intentions clear. Janice McGregor is in our parliamentary bureau, keeping track of who's in and who's out. Janice, what do we know today?
Marcia, sources tell CBC Radio Canada that former Minister Chrystia Freeland will formally announce and kick off her leadership bid sometime within the next 5 days or so. But in the meantime, 2 current ministers who've been pondering a run against her are going to be out today at a trio of events. None of these events are campaign launches per se. François-Philippe Champagne's doing a noon-hour fireside chat at the Canadian Club in Toronto. That's been billed as a conversation about things like EI, supply chains, energy policy. He will be taking questions from reporters, and after a week of saying he's thinking about it, we'll see if he's prepared to call it. Karina Gould is announcing some government funding in her riding in the morning and is also expected to face questions about her ambitions at that event too. Then both of them are slated to appear together at another fireside chat event at the Chamber of Commerce in Gould's riding later in the afternoon. So that might be interesting. Meanwhile, Natural Resources Minister Jonathan Wilkinson is in Washington for the next couple of days, speaking to Republican legislators and other influencers about the value of Canadian exports. If he is still pondering a leadership run, it doesn't seem like he's focusing on that this week.
Then there's former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney. Janice, did he do a soft launch of his leadership bid on a U.S. comedy show?
Mark Carney hasn't done any interviews with Canadian reporters for weeks. But yes, he did find time in his schedule to talk to Jon Stewart.
It's really difficult for a candidate to come in who is saddled with the policies that are on.
But let's say,
oh boy,
the candidate wasn't part of the government. Let's say the candidate did have a lot of economic experience. Let's say the candidate did deal with crises. Let's say the candidate had a plan to deal with the challenges in the here and now.
Sneaky, you're running as an outsider.
I am an outsider.
It's a bit of a trend now in Canadian politics to go on American shows with large Canadian audiences to reach people in this country who don't watch the news. Carney will have to face Canadian reporters at the expected official launch of his leadership bid later this week.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
Janice McGregor in our Parliamentary Bureau. Pope Francis's autobiography is being released today. In it, the pontiff gives some of the behind-the-scenes dynamics of the 2013 conclave that elected him pope. He also details some of the resistance he's encountered since. Hope, the autobiography, was supposed to be published after Francis's death, but at his own request, the book is available now. The world's largest religious festival in northern India is bringing millions of people together. Today is one of the most sacred days of the weeks-long Hindu gathering. 20 million people are expected to take a dip in the country's holy rivers. The CBC's South Asia correspondent, Salima Shivji, has more from Mumbai.
A huge throng of people make their way to the sacred banks of the Ganges, the Yamuna, and the mythical Sarasvati River. Tens of thousands of Hindu devotees are led by Naga sadhus, ash-smeared holy men, naked and plunging into the water. This is one of the ultimate goals for many Hindus, bathing in the river to purify their souls and wash away their sins. If there is heaven on earth, it's here today, Sayoni Rawat says after her dip. More than 20 million people are expected at the confluence of the three rivers just today. It's the largest religious gathering in the world, so big it can be seen from space. And this year is considered especially significant, a Maha or Grand Kumbh Mela, but with the planets, sun and moon perfectly aligned to make this celebration more spiritual. The festival runs for 45 days and organizers expect more than 400 million people to converge on the area. It's a staggering organizational feat, with tens of thousands of portable toilets and tents set up, stretching over land the size of 7,500 football fields. We're prepared for anything, this police superintendent says, with officers deployed to keep everything peaceful. For a religious festival that's already so immense, expected to again break attendance records. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Mumbai.
And that is World Report for this hour. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. Thanks for joining our team here at Information Radio on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. My name is Marcy Marcusa. It's cold out there. But tomorrow it's not going to be. Our high's 1 degree. So what's up with that? We're going to talk about it this half hour. The temperature swings. And if you might recall, back to December, we had a similar situation where we were like feeling like minus 40 and then all of a sudden it was 5 degrees. So why is this happening? And is this widespread or just Manitoba? We'll have that conversation. In addition, lots of comments coming in. We asked you to go positive today and finish this sentence. I love the cold because... Get some of your comments on air. And we're going to get a preview of a brand new festival in Winnipeg that puts a spotlight on Indigenous theater. From a jig and cat to Sisters in a Dystopian Future, we're going to hear about some of the works that are part of this new festival at PTE. Right now, to other headlines and updates in the news. Heather Wells joins us once again. Good morning.
Good morning. A Winnipegger is fighting hate by becoming a one-man graffiti removal crew. Avram Sharak has taken it upon himself to wipe out graffiti in Winnipeg. He does this work all in his own time and says he has removed hundreds of anti-Semitic tags in the past year. And he says he's also removed graffiti targeting other communities. We're going to hear from him coming up. The province is going to tell us more today about its plan to address the growing issue of homeless encampments. The NDP government plans to gradually relocate people one encampment at a time into more permanent housing. The Premier will tell us more at 10 this morning, and you can hear more Manitoba news coming up at 8:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, April Kalaniuk loves the snow because she writes the crunch of the snow, the frost on the windows, toasty warm houses, family game times on coldest days, bundling up to meet the cold, and best of all, no humidity. So she's loving the cold, Abby.
Yeah, she's loving the cold, but it's extremely cold this morning. I don't know if this is the type of cold you want to love, especially if you are a commuter and you're just waiting at that bus stop for some reason. It says delay, 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 and you just want to like walk away into, especially those that don't know this morning, you're saying delayed by 15 minutes, delayed by 15 minutes, and then you said, I'm just going to go into the Timmins at Donald to wait, and your boss is on pass.
So those people aren't writing in.
Those people will not writing because you have to wait for the next 25 minutes.
Yeah. If you are out there waiting in this, wow.
You are a warrior.
Yeah, I agree. Good word for it. So we really haven't moved at all temperature-wise this morning.
Not moved much. Still temperatures around minus 24 in Winnipeg, though in other regions we're seeing this very cold wind chills. Temperatures around minus 30 in the Brandon region already, and the wind chill feels like minus 40. And then further north we're seeing temperatures around minus 26 with the chills around minus 39. But conditions in Winnipeg, minus 24 right now. Chilly, sunny day ahead, but don't let that fool you. It's still chill. We're going to get to a high of minus 19. The wind chill feels like minus 36 this morning. Frostbite is no joke, people. You need to take care out there.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Let's get to the commute news. It has there's been a couple of things. I shouldn't qualify what it's been like. May McKillopson for the update.
Well, we were looking at a stalled vehicle on Lachemaudière in Springfield. That has cleared. So I'm not hearing too much about what's going on here in the city of Winnipeg, but looking at some highway conditions outside of the city. If you're heading east out of Winnipeg, you might want to be cautious just for some partly covered, potentially slippery roads, particularly looking in the Whitemouth and Poplar Bay area. As well, we're seeing Highway 10 in the Dauphin region through Riding Mountain National Park. We're seeing some snow-covered conditions. And if I look at some of the northern highways, they're partly covered. There's some reduced visibility, particularly... sorry, I lost my map spot here, particularly around Leaf Rapids. We're getting some reduced visibility and some covered highways there. If you're seeing anything along your commute and you want to let your fellow listeners know, give me a call and I'll pass that message on, 204-788-3093.
So before our first interview this half hour about the wild swing in the temperature that's about to occur, we want to stick around with today's mood, which is freezing cold, and more of your responses to I love the cold. And so Samantha Mitchell saying, I love the cold because it's easier to get around in a motorized wheelchair when the snow is like quicksand or mashed potatoes, so that's when it's a bit warmer. Samantha writes, I can't get anywhere. Karen Peters saying, I love sundogs and moondogs. Roberta Burt saying, it lets you know you're alive and balanced. We get hot, we get cold here in Manitoba. Embrace and appreciate. Byron Gertz says it cools my oversized pot of cabbage borscht when it's cooked before I can put it in portions in freezer bags. I love the cold for that. A lot of you are writing actually using outside as a fridge. And finally, Shandy Strong writing in, love is such a strong word. Time right now is 8:15. Let's talk about tomorrow. You might love that if you don't love this. So this morning, it's minus 24 in Winnipeg. That's the temperature, as Abby just said. In Brandon, the cold spot in the province this hour, it is minus 33. Tomorrow in Winnipeg, Riley Lachuk has forecast it's going to be 1 degree above zero. So imagine 25 degrees warmer than it is at the moment we're talking. And then this weekend, though, we're going to swing back to the minus 20s. Alex Crawford's here to talk about this, assistant professor at the University of Manitoba's Department of Environment and Geography, and joins us via Zoom. Hi.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So thank you for being here. What is behind these temperature swings? And we saw one in December like this too.
Yeah, we did. So the short answer is that this is all connected to something we call the polar jet stream. And a lot of people have probably heard of that. But for those who don't know, if you look high up in the atmosphere, about 10 kilometers up, you'll find that there's this kind of river stream of really fast wind. It can get up over 200 kilometers per hour. And that is basically the boundary between the really cold, frigid Arctic air that's north of us and the warmer, more mid-latitude air that's sitting to our south. So whenever that polar jet stream has a big ridge in it, and that ridge comes over Winnipeg, we're going to get warmer than normal in winter. And wherever it gets a big trough, wherever it dips down to the south and gets below us, gets south of us, that's when we're going to be experiencing those really colder temperatures. And so what's been happening right now and back in December is that there's these big ridges and troughs, these big waves in that polar jet stream, and they're leading to these pretty quick switches between colder and warmer.
Did they not used to happen? I'm not recalling in the same way. Like we would have periods of cold and then you rarely would get a warm day. I mean, when I was growing up here in Manitoba, it would be like we'd always be looking at Calgary and the Chinooks and wishing we had that here. And now here we are above zero. Or what is happening, with climate science for what we're seeing more frequently here?
Yeah, I think first of all, this is probably more normal than people appreciate. That winter does typically have these swings with the polar jet stream where it gets colder and then it gets warmer again. And I think the thing that might feel a little bit different right now is that just with a little bit of a nudge of global warming, those really warm days, those warmest days are warmer than they used to be. And just for one little comparison, if you go from like 1950 to 1999, those last 50 years of the 20th century, January in Winnipeg would hit that 0 degrees Celsius mark maybe 1 or 2 days on average per year. That means some years it never happened. Some years it might be 3 or 4 days. Nowadays, so since 2000, it's been twice as common as that. And so that means that you're a little bit more likely to see us get up to that melting point. I think that really sticks in our minds. So the polar jet stream's still around. It's still doing its thing. It's just that when it crests that warmest part, it's just getting up to that freezing point a little bit more commonly.
A nudge of climate change.
A little nudge.
So it's interesting because a lot of people point to the swings and say this is absolutely climate change. And in past years, I've been cautioned to use that language on air. And you're saying, in 2025 here, this is, in your view, a nudge of it.
Yeah, I'd say that there's an aspect to it. And again, these big temperature swings are actually pretty normal for Winnipeg in winter. It's just that rather than going from negative 27, which I think was the lowest it got in this spell, up to 1, you may have expected to go from negative 30 up to like negative 3. And that's not that big of a difference. But when you're crossing that boundary of whether something's at the freezing point or not, we really do notice. To get back to the person talking about the slush and the snow, you're going to start to feel that once you get up to around 0. And if you stay well below it, you're going to keep that snow a lot more easy to wheel around in.
Are we seeing this, Alex, in the rest of the country as well?
Yeah, so the polar jet stream is a pretty big feature. So when I say you get a big ridge or a big trough, right now the ridge that's coming at us was over like Alaska and British Columbia and the Yukon all together. That's a big feature. Then when that trough comes over, it's not just going to be Winnipeg that's feeling it. It's going to be Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Western Ontario, all of us. To varying degrees how strongly, but that whole large area, thousands of kilometers.
What does the rest of our winter look like?
That's a great question. And unfortunately, even the best modeling that you can see done at ECCC or Environment Climate Change Canada cannot give a very good forecast for Winnipeg this year. The really short answer is that Winnipeg is always affected by what's happening in the Pacific Ocean. And if you looked at the Pacific, you'd say we should be a little bit colder than normal this year. But if you look at the Atlantic Ocean, which also impacts Winnipeg, you'd say we should be a bit warmer than normal this year. And precipitation, that's no knowing what'll be there. So that means this year is a very hard year to predict for Winnipeg. And so the best thing I can say is you can expect to be cold plenty of the time.
We'll leave it there, Alex. Thank you very much for your time. Enjoy tomorrow if you're a warm lover.
Yeah, thanks.
That's Alex Crawford, an assistant professor in the University of Manitoba's Department of Environment and Geography. And of course, we're all talking about tomorrow because today's forecast high, for example, minus 19 with wind chill. It'll feel like minus 36. And tomorrow, our daytime high is plus 1.
New on CBC Gem this month, Shiva Baby. When a young college student sits Shiva and runs into her sugar daddy and ex-girlfriend, her day of mourning gets messy.
No funny business with Maya.
What is that supposed to mean?
Just try to behave yourself today.
Don't miss this coming-of-age comedy that's as intense as it is hilarious, starring Rachel Sennett. Watch Shiva Baby for free, starting January 17th on CBC Gem.
Well, let's get to something that is coming up and new on the arts scene in Manitoba. The Keenan Indigenous Theatre Festival is happening this weekend at Prairie Theatre Exchange. CBC Manitoba's community reporter, Shanley Vidal, got a preview.
A new festival will put a spotlight on Indigenous theatre in Manitoba. The two-day event will feature emerging playwrights and will revisit an award-winning classic.
Charlene Van Buchenhout, Dishnakashun. Hey everybody, my name is Charlene Van Buchenhout and I'm the artistic producer of Echo Theatre, who is producing the Keenan Indigenous Theatre Festival.
You just acted out a scene that you're rehearsing. Tell me about what you did.
I have a children's piece that is part of the festival. It's called Minushto Kapashu, and it's actually a Southern Michif kind of language piece, but it's also a clown piece for young kids and families, and I play a cat who goes camping and finds a friend in a funny place.
And in that scene there, you were pulling a cart and doing a jig and a little exhausted. Can you give us some context there?
Yeah, that's the very beginning of the play. So Minush has been traveling for a little while and has arrived in a place where she notices there was some friends around and the Red River Jig is playing. And so Minush loves jigging, can't help herself, and starts to dance the jig. But she's been traveling for a little while, so she gets very tired. And eventually the exhaustion overtakes her and she just can't keep up with the jig anymore, even though she loves dancing so much.
Hi, I'm Ashley Cook. I'm one of the artists involved in the Keenan Festival. I am developing a new play titled Gone, She's Gone. Gone, She's Gone is a tale about three sisters. They are navigating this dystopian post-apocalyptic world. And the play is in a fantasy sort of sci-fi genre, which has been really fun. It's based off of my personal experiences growing up in the city of Winnipeg, and which really grounds the play as it explores these psychological themes like family, healing, intergenerational trauma through this mythological lens that makes it pretty fun. What really excites me about jumping into this fantasy sci-fi genre is you don't see a lot of that in theater, actually, fantasy or sci-fi. And furthermore, you don't really see Indigenous characters on stage in this sort of genre, and I'm really excited to jump into that and challenge the mold of what Indigenous theater is.
To end off the festival, we have a reading of Ian Ross's Governor General's award-winning play, Farewell, which has invited back the original cast, most of the original cast, to come and do a reading of this really groundbreaking for Indigenous theatre in Manitoba play. Yeah, and we have a cabaret going on. We also have a conversation with Darla Contois, who is, of course, the award-winning star of Little Bird.
How did the idea to put on this festival come about?
It was many years of thinking about how to support our Indigenous theatre community in Manitoba. Through my conversations with a lot of our artists, there seemed to be an issue about getting particularly artists from here out onto national and international stages and creating more opportunities for the plays to be actually produced and shown to our community, and for arts workers like set builders or sound designers or people who are outside of the actor, playwright place, even a place for further training for actors. We have in town the Indigenous Theatre for Youth, but it's for youth, and after that there's no training program for them to kind of continue in theatre specifically. And so we kind of lose our talent, there's so much talent here that I thought the festival might be able to provide just a small space for us to all gather and together and meet each other and support each other's work and whatever we're trying to do.
The Kianon Indigenous Theatre Festival runs January 18th and 19th at Prairie Theatre Exchange in Winnipeg. For CBC Manitoba, I'm Shannalee Vidal.
The cold of winter melted by an array of floral artistry to warm your soul. Fleur de Ville Artiste comes to the Leaf at Assiniboine Park January 16th to 26th. Be dazzled by figurines decorated in flowery fashions, designed by Manitoba's vibrant art scene and blossoming floral talent. Fleur de Ville Artiste, proudly sponsored by CBC. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for more.
Time right now is 8:26 a.m. and as we've been saying, it's minus 24 in Winnipeg, really cold. I actually just got the news release officially coming out, the press release. 1 month from today, Festival de Voyageurs. They're announcing all of their artists and programming for this year's festival, so they're thrilled about the cold, of course. So you can go to heyho.ca if you want to already start planning for Festival that is coming up. And also, I want to mention something else that is ongoing all next week that we hope that you lean into with us here on CBC. Communities in Focus is back. So you might recall that we've been all over the province, getting to know different communities, but also now that we've been exploring within the in Winnipeg, you might have heard Communities in Focus from Red River Polytech just a couple of months ago. And now we're exploring University of Manitoba. So we're going to be on campus a lot in the next couple of weeks, exploring Gen Z, U of M. Communities in Focus kicks off next Monday for 2 weeks at the University of Manitoba Fort Garry campus, and it runs till the end of January. It means that we'll be set up shop, CBC Manitoba, with office hours at the Fort Garry campus and UMSU University Centre at the Fireside Lounge. So there's a number of different events that are going on. Monday is the first one, January 20th. So from 11:30 to 1 o'clock on Monday, you can come by, grab a bite to eat. Tell us a bit about your community if you're on campus at U of M. Love to have you drop by. Also, there's some panel discussions planned for the week on Thursday, January 23rd, and then the week after, January 30th. Some informal but informative discussions about students taking the lead and giving perspectives on the issues of the day. And then there'll be shows that'll be live on location. So Up to Speed is going to be live at U of M on Wednesday, January 22nd, and also the week after on the 29th. And finally, I just want to mention there'll be a CBC Asks Town Hall discussion. So this one is a little bit later in the day. I'm going to be helping with this one. It's also in the Fireside Lounge at U of M, and it's happening Tuesday, January 28th from 3 to 4:30. So I've thrown a lot of dates and times out to you, but the whole thing is to remind you, of course, that we will be at U of M for the next 2 weeks for Communities in Focus. So if you're thinking, oh, that's awesome, I want to drop by, I have a story to pitch, a perspective to share, I'd love to connect with CBC, we're going to be right there with you. Well, we're coming up to news time at 8:30. We do have a small traffic note here. There's a collision in the median lane at northbound Main Street just past Graham. You can stay right to pass there. And if you have anything else to add to our commute news this morning, you can always give us a call at 788-3093. It's been a pretty good morning overall. We've had some problems on the highways and with visibility up around Leaf Rapids, but otherwise things have been looking pretty good. In the city of Winnipeg, of course, you might still come across some really icy places in the city because of the temperatures out there. So nice clear sky, but it is just absolutely frigid. And it bears repeating that watching for exhaust fog is obviously something that's going to come up. So if you're new on the road and you're not used to that, you're going to really lose your visibility as the cars get going after a standstill. So take it easy. Cold winter driving, and call us, although it's late in the drive, still call us if there's a big problem that we should pass along. Right now, it's time for your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 8:30. Just one more day of this frigid, bitter cold. Right now, minus 24 in Winnipeg, a high today of minus 19 with a risk of frostbite. It is going to be sunny, though, and warmer. We warm up to melting tomorrow. The province will release more details in just an hour and a half from now on its plan to address the growing issue of homeless encampments. The NDP government plans to gradually relocate people, one encampment at a time, into more permanent housing. Few details are known so far. Premier Rob Canoe is going to release more of those details this morning at 10 o'clock. He will be joined by Winnipeg Mayor Scott Gillingham. A Winnipegger is taking it upon himself to remove hateful graffiti. Avram Shirak has removed more than 100 tags across the city, including swastikas and messages targeting the Jewish community.
My day job is property management, so we have basically a rule. Graffiti's gone within 24 hours. The haters learn it's not worth hating if you keep removing their hate. But yeah, it's to get rid of the negativity and just leave the positivity.
Shirak says he has also removed graffiti targeting other communities. He hopes others are also inspired to step up and help Winnipeg become a place where hate is not tolerated. The federal Conservatives have nominated a candidate for the federal riding of Winnipeg South. As we hear now from CBC's Bartley Kivas, it is a familiar face for Manitobans.
Janice Morley-Lecomte was a progressive Conservative MLA for Seine River from 2016 to 2023. She served in cabinet when Heather Stephenson was premier. Morley-Lecomte will now seek federal office in Winnipeg South. Since 2015, it's been represented by Liberal MP Terry Duguid. Conservative officials did not respond to CBC News' request to interview Morley-Lecomte. Duguid says he finds her nomination interesting because she was defeated by the NDP relatively recently.
Manitobans were pretty clear about the previous Manitoba Conservative government in showing them the door.
Duguid faces a challenge of his own. The Liberals trail the Conservatives in the polls, and in every election since 1988, the party that won the most seats also won Winnipeg South. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Federal Energy Minister Jonathan Wilkinson will spend the next 2 days in Washington trying to advocate for Canada ahead of Donald Trump's threat to impose 25% tariffs on all Canadian goods and commodities entering the U.S. Wilkinson will meet with American senators and members of Congress. The focus will be Canadian oil, gas, and other exports. A provincial court judge has ruled a woman's charter rights were violated during an arrest in Garden Hill First Nation in 2023. The woman told a safety officer and RCMP she'd been drinking alcohol before hitting her boyfriend with a bus she was driving. The woman was held in custody for nearly 5 hours at a police station. In a written decision released late last month, the judge said the woman was not informed of the reason for her detention, nor was she told of her right to remain silent or to speak to a lawyer. The judge dismissed the comments the woman made to the officers from the evidence in her case, which involves impaired and dangerous driving charges. Well, get set to climb on our winter roller coaster. From frigid this morning to close to melting tomorrow. But the mercury is going to dive right back to the mid-20s this weekend. Alex Crawford is an assistant professor at the University of Manitoba's Department of Environment and Geography. He says it's all due to the polar jet stream, a sort of dividing line between Arctic air in the north and warmer air from the south.
We're going to get a really big ridge that comes through, and that's going to be followed pretty quickly by a really deep trough. And that's going to lead to really warm temperatures in the middle of the week and then really cold temperatures over the weekend.
And the seasonal high this time of year, by the way, is somewhere in the middle, -13. Well, the entertainment for Donald Trump's Inauguration Day celebrations is starting to come together. Carrie Underwood will sing America the Beautiful shortly before Trump takes the oath of office. And other inaugural day performers will include country singer Lee Greenwood and the Village People, whose hits YMCA and Macho Man were staples last year at Trump election rallies. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Heather Wells, Festivals announced their full lineup this morning.
Hey.
Right? Yeah. So you can go to the website. Thank you for the morning.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And it is heyho.ca. You can check it out. Or hey. They are happy about the cold. And they've got their full lineup of performers announced on the website now. So if you're a regular festival goer, then you'll want to check it all out. So it runs 14th to 23rd of February, and the full program's up. We figured we'd play a little Métis fiddle music. This is Rabbit Dance, local Métis leader John Arcand, and fiddling us out today. If you want to see, by the way, one of his historic fiddles, it's on display in the Beyond the Beat exhibition that's on at CMHR. So got all those cool tidbits to end the show. So Abby, take it away with a last quick look at this cold day.
Very cold day indeed. Sunny skies and the forecast in most of the areas, that the wind chill is something that you should not play with. We're going to feel like minus 36 in Winnipeg, minus 14 in Brandon, and minus 39 in the northern part of the province. It's going to be bitterly cold, so take care out there.
And a last look at traffic, May?
Just a quick note that there's a collision in the median lane on northbound Main Street just past Graham, so stay left to pass, keep right to pass and zipper merge if you're able to.
Abby's jigging.
Oh, Abby's jigging.
Yeah.
Oh, we love to see
some
that.
moves. You got some moves. Thanks to everyone who worked on today's show. Jim Agapito, Kalkadan Mulugeta, Chidi Akuma, Shanali Vidal, and Jason Emsam. Just highlighting them because they had pieces in today's program. Big thanks to our entire unit and current affairs at CBC Manitoba and our leaders in unit, Nellie Gonzalez and Leif Larson. Take care. Be well, Manitoba. Jigging will keep you warm today, and we'll be back tomorrow when it's going to be 1 degree. The Currents coming up next on CBC.